What is going on, my diehards, my degenerates, MMA fans, gamblers of all ages? Welcome to the show. It is Monday, best show of the week, kicking us off strong. We got UFC Jacksonville this week. We're coming off the heels of UFC Vegas 75, and what was maybe one of the most head-scratching and confusing events we've had in a long time. I mean, we had a no contest. In that no contest, we had an early stoppage, a phantom tap. We had a clash of heads that led to a technical decision. Like, what even was last week's card? Absolute insanity in Vegas last week. Managed to scrape by ever so barely by the skin of our teeth for a little bit of profit. So real quick, let's just start there. First and foremost, those of you who are with me hanging out in the chat already, I see you. What's up, everybody? Thank you very much for hanging out with me. We've got Emily, we've got Mike Harvey, we've got Dream in the house. Ethan is here as well. Dixon Cider, we got Fight Supervisor, the Golden Octagon, Mushroom, Air Dog, Johnny Rex Lee. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you all so much for being here. Everybody pouring in here. Heat Stick. We got Nigel Lee, my guy. All right. So last week, just real quick, want to run over it real quick. We did post a nice little winning record, but that's two, folks. 2 UFC events in a row where a live bet has saved my ass. I ran an update for the official podcast record for 2023. We are up 40 units flat. I don't know how I did that. I couldn't have done that again if I tried because of all the little bits and numbers you get. Somehow I'm exactly 48 units up for the year 2023, down ever so slightly over the past 6 events. But like I said, those live bets for last week and for UFC 289 are the only reason I was profitable on those. So we got to get our shit together. Like, even though things are going, pretty okay, we still are not doing exactly what we were to start the year. I want to get back on track. I want to get these monstrous weeks rolling yet again. We were this close to a 28 unit score, folks. I tweeted out a parlay that was Bellator, PFL, and UFC. And the one pick'em line that I put in the parlay is the one that lost. The 1 minus 110 line that I put in the damn parlay is the one that blew the whole thing. I am so beyond frustrated that I didn't get that score right now. I will never forgive James. But I do want to show this off here real quick. If you guys don't follow my guy Brian over here on Twitter, that's the wrong tab. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let me get my guy Brian up here for you. Brian XL over here. He does a good job of tracking UFC handicappers and stuff like that. A lot of the people like myself that do shows. And I just got to shout this out. I got to, get my rub in here real quick, because through 6 months of 2023, your boy is on top. All right? On top. That's the wrong tweet. I'm losing my shit today. There we go. All right. I'm an absolute mess, you guys. I do apologize. I am on top at 67.43%. I'm the number one handicapper when it comes to providing free content for you guys out there. So I'm pretty proud of that. That's never happened. That's never been a thing before. I've always said that my bets have mattered more than my picks. So, pick accuracy in the long term is not something I feel like I've generally done very well. So I'm pretty impressed with myself. Thank you very much. But you know what? I've rambled just a little bit too much about a couple of different topics. We got a lot of fights to get to tonight. We've already got 62 live viewers, and I have just a monstrous guest for you guys this evening. You may know him from several productions involving the UFC themselves. You may know him from the Gambler's Perspective podcast, none other than our friend Nick Kalikas. Nick, how you doing today, my guy?
Doing well, my friend. How are you, Clint?
Doing good. I'm pumped up. I can't wait to talk to some fights with you. It's been way too long since our last show together.
Yes, sir, man. Looking forward to this for sure.
Absolutely.
This is a great card, too. So I'm glad we picked this one to kind of break down together.
Completely agree. You know, when I was looking ahead on this one, it was like, you know, I want to make sure I pick a good card. You know, you got a good guest. You want to do a good card. You know, I always try to like sync that kind of thing up. And I was like, man, I'm out of pay-per-views. Where am I going to throw Nick? And I looked at this one and I'm like, you know what? The name value isn't quite there, but this card is fun. I think there's a lot to get into when it comes to betting on this particular card. So glad to hear you feel the same.
Yeah, for sure. And all the events that have been in Jacksonville as of late have been fireworks, man. So this is another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be a good one to talk about. Should be some good betting opportunities. I am pumped up. Hopefully you all in the chat are as well. Nick, how'd you do last week?
Did pretty well. I think overall it was like 2.7 units ahead, if I'm not mistaken, on UFC on the line, somewhere around there. So 2.5 units up. It was kind of a grind. You know, you lose some, you win some, but overall came out ahead. So I'll take it all day.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that is, you can't ask for much more than that sometimes, man. Any type of profit whatsoever it's a good day at the office sometimes. You can't have those monster weeks every single time.
No, not at all. Hey, but congrats. I heard about your success that you were just going over the stats on the show this year. So you're on fire in 2023. Keep it up, man.
Thanks a lot, Nick. It means a lot coming from somebody like you. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy because I'm coming off, you know, last year was abysmal, embarrassing, frankly, in front of the entire world. So for me to bounce back and have such a strong year this year, just want to not fumble the bag before the end of 2023.
No, much respect. I mean, you're transparent with stuff and you're going to have your bad spots. And like you said, when it's in the public eye, it just stings a little bit more when, you know, things aren't going your way. But I mean, I'm telling you from experience myself, I've had some down years in the past. I know a lot of sharps that have had some off years too as well. But overall, long-term, again, 7 out of 10 years, 8 out of 10 years, you're probably going to have a lot of success throughout those, you know, that time span. So just keep on grinding and, you know, don't listen to the haters. The haters will come when things are going bad and they go away when things are going great. So I'm sure you don't have that many haters coming at you this year.
It's pretty great. The silence is deafening, Nick. I know they're still listening, and that's the best part is they'll be waiting for their opportunity to pounce. I know they're still out there, fans of the show, maybe my biggest fans, but it is nice not to hear the chirping for the last couple of months. All right, everybody, we've got some serious fights to get to here. And the first one, they rearranged the bout order on this bad boy, Nick. So we're starting off with a bang. I can't wait to talk to you about the first fight of the night. Cody Brundage filling in here on short notice, taking on Sedriques Dumas. And you guys all remember Dumas. I don't want to talk about this fight, Nick. I really don't. So let's just get it all out there to start the show. I made a massive bet on Dumas. Things were just starting to turn around for me, just starting to head the right direction. And I looked at the number and I went, that's going to move. And I made probably the biggest bet that I've made so far in 2023, actually, on Dumas. And it was not based on this guy should be a minus 500 favorite. It was based on line value. It was a pick 'em. I knew he was going to close in the minus 200, minus 250 range, and I just wanted to have that CLV and abuse that number because I did think he was going to win the fight. So that's what happens when you overextend and you reach past your edge, and I got punished for it, Nick. I got punished for it. He got his ass whooped. He got exposed for potentially even being a fraud that night, and I lost a giant pile. That's maybe the one thing so far this year that I have gotten the mass amount of ridicule for online, and deservedly so. But now he comes back for his, sophomore outing here at the UFC level, and he's getting a guy in Cody Brundage who, while personally I'm a big fan of, he has been really up and down in the organization. I still, to this day, Nick, don't know what to make of Cody Brundage. I said it last time when I broke down his fight. He has flashes of brilliance. When he had Rodolfo Vieira in there with him, the guy was rocked twice in the first round. I mean, Rodolfo was almost out cold, something not even Chris Curtis could do, and he found a way to fumble that. Like, he just seems to fall apart in these fights. he's got the wrestling, he's got the striking, he's strong, he's powerful, but I think he's a little mentally fragile. And I think he's got a little bit of a questionable gas tank. He kind of needs to be the bully and doesn't do quite as well when people turn the tables on him. So here we come into this fight and we go, all right, everybody and their mother was on Sedriques Dumas, which is why I had such an amazing number in my pocket that first time around. He closed a massive favorite. Now everybody is betting against him. It is the classic recency bias swing where he went from pick 'em last time to a huge favorite, pick 'em this time to a huge dog. And I like Cody Brundage, man. He follows me on Twitter. I really don't want to tweet out another bet going against him, Nick, but this line is getting out of control. I mean, if it keeps on steaming the way that it's going, I probably have to take a flyer on Dumas at this spot. I think this is going to be a complete car crash. I think this is going to be a 2-minute fight, Nick. So no matter who wins or loses, this thing is going to be over in a hurry. But I kind of feel like Dumas is the side when we're getting, what, plus 175 at this point? What do you make of this fight?
At this point, I agree with you, man. I mean, how could you trust Brundage? I understand he looks the part, like you said, at times. I mean, the guy has decent striking. He's got some power, so he can obviously do some damage on the feet. He's got the wrestling. He's got a solid offensive ground game, so he looks the part. And Dumas, everybody's jumping off that wagon. Like you said, recency bias. He looks so bad. And let's not forget, it was against an opponent that's really questionable as far as UFC caliber. No disrespect to Frem, but he's kind of one of those borderline guys, if he's going to stick around or not, whatever the case may be. Right. So yeah. I do believe that kind of hurt him as well. But this matchup is something totally different, man. Brundage gives opportunities to his opponents to come in here and have success against him, as you mentioned. So I think Dumas is probably being overlooked, especially the price now. There's no way that you can lay the Brundage side at minus 200 or above. You got to look at the dog or just leave it alone here. I understand why the love. I mean, Brundage should have several advantages in this fight. And again, if you look at the opponents that Brundage has faced, in comparison, I mean, there's not even a question mark. This is a step down for Brundage. So there's a lot going in his favor. I get it, but I'm not willing to lay 200, dude. I mean, the people that got in at like minus 110, pick them or even better, whatever the case may be, at open near pick them. If you got a good number like that, hats off to you. But those of you guys that are trying to chase the steam at this top end around minus 200, get out of here. Stay away from it. Just leave it alone. If you missed the boat on that side, leave it alone, because now as it climbs, I agree with you, Clint. I think it's a dog or pass.
I couldn't agree with you more, Nick. If you were one of the movers, if you got in right when this number dropped and you got minus 110, that's fine with me. I'll take Cody Brundage at a pick him here in this spot. He's got such a big advantage in the grappling realm for this fight. Absolutely, he can abuse that coming in here. But minus 200 is way too rich for my blood here in this spot. And thank you, Preston, in the chat, hitting me with a reminder. For those of you who don't know, you're watching this podcast on Pub Sports Radio. They've been hosting me here for a long time, and our boy Mills has been doing his rounds with the fighters. He does a lot of fighter interviews. He does media like Bellator, PFL, stuff like that. He's got the hookup. We got Mills doing an interview with Dumas. In fact, that is hitting at 7 p.m. tonight right here on Pub Sports Radio, and I already have notifications on for this one, Nick, because I want to hear what he's got to say. You know, I said on my last breakdown of Dumas that regardless of what I think about him personally speaking, there's a lot of bad press out there about this guy. It seems like he's a John Jones type guy where you got to respect the fighting ability, but not necessarily the human behind it. I think I'm buying in on him as a fighter. He's got the right frame, and I got to clarify. I got to make sure I am perfectly enunciated here on this one, Nick. I said he's got a frame that reminds me of a Jamall Hill, of a John Jones. You know, he's got that tall, lanky build. He's well muscled, but he knows how to use that reach. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's raw. If they can harness that raw physical talent and frame, I can see this kid going somewhere. I could see him really being something. He's got the right body type. And people jumped on that and were like, bro, you compared him to Jamall Hill. I'm like, no, not even close. Physically, people, physically, his frame. So I still believe all of that. I'm very curious to see what my guy, there he is, locker room in the house. I'm very curious to see how that interview goes. I want to hear what Dumas has got to say about this one. And I'm going to watch this number, Nick, because, I mean, plus 175 is already tempting me. But if it gets any higher than that, it's almost a must bet for me. Like one of those ones where as much as you want to throw up in your mouth a little, you got to take it.
No, I agree. It is tempting right now at the price because I don't think you're never as bad as your last fight or your worst spot. We say it. I mean, Yanni and I have said it just recently on UFC on the line. I mean, sometimes we just underestimate fighters because they're looking so bad at certain times. But you know what? These guys are high performance athletes. He made the UFC, Dumas did, for a reason. I mean, his resume before the UFC, he was deserving to get that spot. He's a talented fighter. He's not going to look as bad as he did in his debut. He's going to bounce back a little bit better. And these guys got a chip on their shoulder. You don't think he's going to try to fine tune his game a little bit and be even more, I guess, hungry and more determined to kind of right that wrong that he showed in the first fight? So there's a lot of factors that go into this spot. And again, Brundage coming in at short notice. Man, just I agree. It is tempting to definitely bet the dog here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Matt Miller here in the chat saying you don't have to burn money, folks. And I just want to remind everybody that is 1000% correct. You know, on this podcast, I pride myself on letting you guys know time in and time out, I'm going to give you as much information as I possibly can. And then I'm going to let you know where my money is going. You're grown ass adults. Go out there and make the bet that makes sense for you. And if this is a situation where you don't feel safe enough to bet it, pass. There is absolutely nothing wrong with keeping your hands in your pockets. At a certain point, I play numbers, Nick. So at a certain point, the number will be too much, and I'm going to have to pull the trigger on it if it keeps going. But not everyone has that approach, and that's
well
okay.
Said. No, exactly. Spot on. And you got to respect everybody's opinion for sure. Back and forth. Yep.
Absolutely. And you know what? I got a little ahead of myself, Nick, at the beginning of the show. I do real quickly just want to go ahead and point out and celebrate for everybody. Happy Juneteenth to anybody out there that's doing the barbecue tonight and having a hell of a night and celebrating. It's a big day for a lot of folks. So I just wanted to wish you guys a happy Juneteenth. It's also my mother-in-law's birthday. I want to say happy birthday. Shout out to my mother-in-law, Laura. She's been a bigger influence on the podcast than most of you probably know. So happy birthday to her. I'm going to be spending her birthday with you guys instead, hoping to make it for cake at the end of the night before the party wraps up. Let's move on for the next fight of the evening here. We go from banger to banger, Nick. Tatsuro Taira is taking on Kleydson Rodrigues. And this is a fight that I'm actually a little shocked, if I'm being honest. You've got two incredibly promising prospects, and the UFC doesn't crash those guys into each other anymore. That's not a thing that we see. Usually they've got some people that are, feeder league type of fighters these days. They'll give, debutantes to one guy off Dana White's Contender Series. And, they make sure some of these hot prospects really get propped up on each other. Both of these guys are legit. Taira is probably the best Japanese prospect we've ever seen. 23 years old, grappling phenom, 13-0. He's a strong wrestler. He's a slick grappler. He's tall and lanky for the weight class. He plays range really well. He's got good kicks, and he's so strong in the clinch. If he decides to work with knees, he can. And once he gets a hold of you, he does not let you go. I mean, like the way he picked up and slammed a guy that's as muscly and as explosive as CJ Vergara, that sticks out in my brain that he's capable of doing that. So he's not your classic BJJ guy that can't get the fight to the ground where it needs to be for him to win. No. He can wrestle too. He's going to be 2 inches taller in this spot. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, but his opponent, Kleydson Rodrigues, is just 27 years old. And this guy was out of Team Nogueira. Now he's training with Charles Oliveira, Nick. Like, I can't believe that these two are going to share the cage at this ripe young age with each other. He is fast. He's aggressive. He's got that solid, heavy-footed Muay Thai style striking, but he still is light on his feet when he needs to get out of range of his opponents. He explodes with every single attack that he's got, targets the body, big knees, hard teep kicks, spinning attacks. I mean, he tries to kill you with everything he's got. The thing that concerns me about Kleydson Rodrigues, Nick, is the gas tank. We saw it against CJ Vergara. I bet against him, and CJ pulled the upset. The hometown boy for UFC Phoenix pulled the upset that night, and I cashed a big plus money ticket on him. I hate to say it, but I think that's kind of how this fight plays out too. As long as Taira can defend himself in that first round and a half, I think eventually Rodrigues burns himself out, and then you get Taira taking over with the grappling. Now, we've never had anybody nearly this offensive come at Tatsuro Taira, nearly this capable, I guess I should say. At 23 years old, you're talking about minus 300 on a very young kid who is still more than capable of making mistakes, or maybe just getting caught with something that he didn't see coming. So extremely volatile, hard for me to lay the number, but I think I'm still picking Taira to get the win here. Nick, what do you make of this one?
This one's tough. I mean, the price is what I don't like about it for Tatsuro.
Yeah.
I mean, Rodrigues, like you said, man, he is game. And I think styles make fights. It's automatically easy to think Tatsuro comes in here and does what he's been doing and dominates people on the ground. But it's not going to be easy against Rodrigues. He can stuff those takedowns early, and I think he is going to be dynamite on the feet. So I think this is a unique stylistic matchup. Even though Tatsuro has faced some good competition thus far, and you can look back and you could compare, do MMA math and all the stuff that you want to do here, but it doesn't always add up. And this is the case where styles make fights. And I think Rodrigues it can really bring it, especially like you said, in the first, at least half of this fight, he's going to be really dangerous. And I don't think Tatsuro is going to be able to handle what he brings. So I do like the dog here. If you're going to bet this fight, I think it's a dog or pass. Still at the number here, I think it's still a little high, but there's been sharp action that has hit the market, has gobbled up the plus 300s, 280s, 270s, all the way on down. So there is action coming in on the dog right now. They respect Rodrigues in this spot. So I'm sure there's going to be some buyback now with the price dropping, though. And of course, I mean, like you said, Tatsuro is game, man. He's definitely one of the best prospects coming in out of Japan. And I think he's the real deal. He keeps on developing his striking. He's going to be a threat and a potential title contender, but this is a very good test for him. If he comes in here looking the part again, man, I mean, this is, like you said, I can't believe sometimes that the UFC goes out of their way to match up these prospects like this, man. I mean, it's amazing, because hats off to both of them, to the matchmakers, because I think in a case like this, a lot of people would avoid him and keep him on separate tracks, but you're getting what's real here, meaning that, you know what, the winner of this fight is going to take a huge step forward, and he's battle tested, and that goes a long way for a potential title shot.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. This is, and it's striker versus grappler too, which we all absolutely love, right? It's going to be a clear advantage for one guy, depending on where the fight is taking place. Going to be really interesting to see how they do going up against one another. I'm so pumped for this fight, Nick. I'm so excited for it. I'm thinking Taira sub round 2 or round 3. Frankly, I still think that's the move for me. I'm going to pick Taira to go ahead and stay on track and still get the win, but damn, if you want to take a shot at that plus money, I think the line absolutely opened up wide. And I don't even mind the people taking the KO shot. Like, I'm not sure. We don't know about Taira's durability yet. We don't know if he can go through a dogfight and come out the other side. So if you want to take that shot, you're getting the guy and you're getting the number to do it. So good luck if you take that angle. I'm probably going to be passing from a money line perspective unless it keeps crashing. You know, once it gets down in the ballpark of minus 200 or something, maybe now we're talking about taking a look at it. But I think this is a pick and watch type of situation for me.
No, I don't blame you. Like I said, this is an intriguing fight, though. And it's the second fight of the night, for crying out loud. That's what I'm saying. This card, I know people have been giving some heat to the UFC for some of these cards haven't been up to par in their opinion. But, man, look at these cards that are flying under the radar, so to speak. Look at the talent that's – I mean, even the next fight we're going to talk about here, these guys are top-tier fighters that could be on the main card of the portion. So this is a very good deep card.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People get a little lost, like I said, in that name value. This is a good card, folks. Speaking of a good card, we're having a good time. We already got 142 live viewers. I'm joined by none other than Fight Odds himself, Nick Kleydson. Everybody, do me a favor. If you're not following Nick on socials, what are you doing? First, go follow him. Take a break. Leave the browser open. Go give him a follow. Come right back and hit that thumbs up button. That's the best way that you can support us. Let the algorithm know that you like the content that you're receiving and keep it coming to you for free. And if you haven't subscribed here to Pub Sports Radio, do that too. It just, turn the notifications on. Let you know when we go live and when my guy goes live with Sedriques Dumas right after the podcast there. Next fight up, we're talking about Jamall Emmers taking on Jack Jenkins, and you hit the button on this one, Nick. This could be a main card fight on like a weaker UFC card. Jamall Emmers, we've seen a lot of this guy. He's a freak athlete. He's 19-6. He's been around for a while. Jack Jenkins, 1-0 off Dana White's Contender Series. Impressively a fun guy. He gets in firefights. This could be much, much higher up on the list, I feel like. But here we get it, third fight in. It's going to be nonstop action, violence this weekend here in Jacksonville. Emmers is 33 years old, and I'll be honest with you, Nick, I feel like he never really got out of the prospect category. Like, he got brought in against Giga Chikadze. Like, we thought this guy was going to have serious depth to his talent, and they brought him in expecting to make a splash, but he's 2-3 in the UFC. He showed off some fight IQ problems. The Pat Sabatini fight, I talked about it when Pat fought last week, Nick. I will never, ever, ever be able to trust Jamall Emmers at chalk because of that Pat Sabatini fight. I was in deep on him on the knockout that night. And the fact that he had him hurt and then played footsie with a BJJ black belt and gave him, his win condition on a silver platter. Never again. Never again. But he's got big hands. He's fast. He's athletic. That long jab. He keeps people well at range. Lots of front kicks to make sure they're, all in or all out. Kind of reminds me a little bit of John Jones, the way he attacks that, lead leg. He's got the side kick that he goes to. Dude's got 100% takedown defense, 3-inch height advantage, 6-inch reach advantage. He's a freak in there. Jack Jenkins, 11-2. Like I mentioned, he's off Dana White's Contender Series. Looks like he's training out at Absolute MMA these days. Big, powerful clinch knees. Everything this guy does. He's another one that just does everything with just big power, trying to hurt you with every single shot that he throws. Hard calf kicks, one or two of those things. And his opponents are already limping a little bit. Legs swollen up, turning red. You watch the tape. His calf kicks are nasty. He's got a real stiff, power jab when he goes to that. He's got really nice footwork too. Fades just out of range of his opponent's attacks. The thing is, he's got 2 submission losses, and we know Jamall Emmers has got some grappling chops on him. There's definitely some back and forth potential here on this fight, Nick. Honestly, I'm a little frozen on this one. I initially, when I first looked at it, was like, man, I really like Jack Jenkins. I think he's going to disrespect Emmers in a good way, really take the fight to him, get in there. You got those long, skinny chicken legs. Some of those leg kicks can do some serious damage to those things. He's a plus 160 underdog. I do think he's live in this fight, but at the same time, this is a massive step up in competition. Emmers has been around the block against some people that are much higher caliber than this at this stage of his career, and we've seen the weakness on the ground. I kind of talked myself off the ledge on this one. I leaned to Jack Jenkins initially, and I've simmered down, and I kind of feel like Jamall Emmers is actually probably the side here. I don't have a bet on it, but I think I'm going to pick Emmers to go ahead and get the win. Nick, talk to me about this matchup.
I love the matchup, and it's another surprising one in my opinion because, I thought they were going to push the Aussie Jenkins a little bit more, but instead they're giving him a guy that I don't think he's ready for. I mean, I like the part, like you said, Jenkins is definitely a solid fighter. I mean, he's getting better too. That's the thing. I mean, his striking you have to worry about because, like you said, he has enough zap on the feet. Those leg kicks are fantastic tools. He can wrestle you. He can put you down on the ground. And offensively, his grappling is actually pretty good. But like you said, he has had some defensive flaws in the past with his grappling. But I think he's kind of got over that hump. The problem here is, though, again, Emmers is on another level. And a lot of the diehard UFC fans know exactly what we're talking about. But a lot of the maybe newer fans, a lot of the newbies might not respect him. If you just look at his record, he's so-and-so in the UFC thus far. But those, competition levels have been pretty stiff. Again, that heel hook from Sabatini, man, it's kind of head scratcher. I was disappointed in that too, right? But
seconds away from winning.
Yes. And the other loss against Chikazi is a contender for crying out loud. So, I mean, they're not bad losses. It's just, if you look down, I mean, I think the Erosa loss was kind of bad. Not that Erosa's a bad fighter. I think Erosa's underrated too. But just he has those moments defensively at times, those defensive lapses on the Emmers side where you're like, oh my God, you're so talented. You shouldn't have that kind of lapse or that shouldn't have happened to you. But I think here Jenkins is dangerous, but not quite dangerous enough to present some of those problems against Emmers. So I personally did get on him. I got him at around, I think, minus 165, 175 before this rush just came. And the market has been a little funny with this because we saw some initial action come in on the dog on the Jenkins side. And I know a lot of sharps out there that respect the Jenkins side in this spot. So there is going to be two-way sharp action, and there's going to be syndicates, individuals, all sorts of people kind of disagreeing with this fight. But obviously, you're looking at the market today, and it's ballooned up all the way up to 200 or above, obviously, on the Emmers side for a reason, because there's more sharp action that has hit the Emmers side. So there's a lot of sharps that are agreeing on the Emmers side. There's a few that agree on the dog side here. It's going to be interesting to see where this closes. But I just do think this is too much too soon for a guy like Jenkins to come here and get this win. I mean, I'm just surprised that they matched him, like I said, in this spot right now.
I'm right there with you. I agree with you. It seems like a vote of confidence from the UFC, but it just feels like it's a little too much, a little bit too soon for me. And that actually was a big red flag, in my opinion, Nick, because I'm seeing nothing but Jenkins online. We've got our little Twitter spheres, our circles, a bunch of gamblers. We all follow each other, and everybody is on Jenkins. The market is steaming the other direction. And for me, that's just like, okay, so we are not controlling the market right now. Somebody out there who is more respected with deeper pockets is the one who's on the right side. And they're saying Jamall Emmers. So when I was kind of, teetering just a little bit, I was like, that's the final nail in the coffin. The market's telling me Emmers is the side.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that looks like it is the case here, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to be right. I mean, there's times that a lot of us lined up. Look at the Dariush Oliveira side. I mean, it was just recent. Look, in hindsight, Oliveira was definitely the bet to make, no question. So those people that bet Oliveira, that was a tremendous bet. But before the fight, pre-fight, more sharp action was hitting the Dariush side. I mean, I know it was verified. So multiple sharps, a lot of syndicates, everybody was coming in on Dariush. It was the wrong bet. Oliveira ended up being the correct side of things. But I'm just saying, so it doesn't always mean because you're seeing sharps agree on one side and start taking, action and you see the line float up that it's going to be right. Now, more times than not, it should be right in a case like this, but not always right. So be careful. Again, if you're laying a number, if you're trying to follow the steam, that could be a dangerous game. You have to get the right pricing. If you're trying to jump in at minus 210, minus 215, at this point, it might be wrong. I mean, I'm not telling you that's a good spot to do. At minus 165 is different than laying 215. There's a big difference in that kind of number. So just be cautious out there.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I am right there with you on that one. And I think it's funny, as somebody who bet on Charles Oliveira, Nick, the difference, thank you. The difference for me is the level of confidence. You know what I mean? If I'm thinking I can make arguments for both guys and I can see it both ways and I'm kind of torn, and then the market shines a spotlight on what's probably going on, I go, okay, all right. I think that's the side I'm going to fall on here. The difference was, it didn't matter to me on Charles Oliveira. I didn't give two shits who put their money on Beneil Dariush or how many people there were. I knew in my soul it was Charles Oliveira's time again. So, that's where, for this fight, I don't have that conviction. I'm not even close to having that kind of an opinion on this fight. So I'm like, market says Emmers. Okay, Emmers it is.
Right. No, and always, just moving forward, anytime you get Oliveira at dog price, I guess anybody on the planet, it's hard to resist him, right? With how offensively talented he is. So there's always that kind of pulls you in towards it. But yeah, no, much respect again to the Oliveira bettors.
He's just one of those guys, man. Plus money's never wrong on Charlie O.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Next fight up. My guy is back in the house. Trevor Peek. I love this kid. Taking on Chepe Mariscal, who a lot of you probably have not heard of. But he's good. This is not a walk in the park. And another spot with really interesting line movement, Nick, because you've got Trevor Peek, who opened up like a minus 250 favorite out there. We're looking at pick'ems now. It's been a flood on Chepe since this fight got set up. So you guys know I've talked about it when it's time to, plug the sponsors and stuff. I'll talk about Spectation Sports. We've been watching Trevor Peek for a long time. He's the guy I can really hang my hat on, Nick, that I'm like, we spotted this kid on the regional scene and we knew we were going to make cash with him through the Contender Series into the UFC because we've been watching him for a long, long time, thanks to Spectation Sports. So he's my guy. I absolutely want to find opportunities to back him, and he just fights for your money. He's a good guy to bet on in general. He's reckless. He's raw, but he's got that fight-ending power that you can't teach. There's something about this guy. He's durable. He's tough. And he will go out on his shield trying to get the finish, except no one's been able to go out with him. No one can put this guy out. We have yet to see it. You can't finish him, and trying, he ends up getting you instead. He throws the tomahawk punches that everybody loves so much. And since he got his last fight, 50K bonus, Nick, he's training full-time for the first time in his life. This guy's 8-0, made it to the UFC. He was working 2 full-time jobs and trying to find a third one just so he could keep himself floating to get to the UFC opportunity. And he's finally training full-time now. I can't wait to see what kind of a transformation he goes through over the next 2 years, now that he's going to have a camp and a full-time coach, and this is his day job where all of his focus is going to go. But that only happened 4 months ago. And it's hard to ask somebody to evolve in just 4 months. So I think we're going to see a lot of the same Trevor Peek coming in here in this spot. If this fight was another 4 months down the road, different tune. You got time to go back and work with a coach. You retune things. You work on pieces of your game that are missing. 4 months, that's basically a training camp. So I think we're going to see just a slightly improved Peek this time around, not a drastically improved Peek. And you've got Chepe, on the other hand, who's 16-3. So straight off the bat, Nick, he's going to have twice the MMA experience that Trevor Peek has in general. He's only 30 years old, and he's fought in some of the biggest non-UFC organizations out there, some of the feeders, Cage Warriors, LFA, Combate. Like, he's been around. He's fought in all of these, and he trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He's another one of these guys that is going nowhere. He's got a great gas tank, and he can cook people in there. Losses to Sean Soriano, Steve Garcia, Anderson Brito, Bryce Mitchell. Like, all the guys that have beaten this man. So it takes a UFC caliber opponent to actually get him out of there. And he's got wins over Youssef Zalal and Pat Sabatini. The thing about him, though, Nick, is he's kind of the perfect fight for Trevor Peek. He crashes into people. He's another blitzer. He's willing to meet you in the center and throw down until somebody's unconscious. He's got 3 knockout losses. I do want to say one of those is bullshit. So he got knocked out by Steve Garcia, and it was one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. I mean, absolutely awful. He was hurt. Don't get me wrong. He was hurt, but he was very much still in the fight. Eyes were clear. He was still there, capable, defending, and the referee stepped in and waved it off. It was brutal. So he technically has only been knocked out twice, but one of those was against Brito, and he was unconscious for a good 6 minutes. So he has been KO'd before. These guys have a matching 70-inch reach, and frankly, Nick, this is this thing where I'm ready to back my guy at plus odds. If enough money comes in on Chepe to get Trevor Peek up to plus money, or maybe you just play the KO prop, because probably if he wins, it's most likely a knockout. This is a guy that's going to be willing to meet Trevor Peek in the middle. I could absolutely see him taking his first L here in this spot just because of the experience, because Chepe's been hurt and he knows how to survive that. He knows how to veteran savvy and get his way around that and take over if he needs to. I haven't seen Trevor Peek pushed that way before. So this is the testing ground here for my guy Peek on Saturday. I'm going to pick him to win. I think he's going to pass the test, but I definitely didn't like minus 200. I didn't jump in at minus 170. Now that we're down at minus 110, I'm going, So I'm getting tempted, Nick. I'm getting there, but I got to respect the move coming in on Chepe. What do you got here?
Yeah, no, I'm looking over at the Don Best screen as we speak. I have Spank odds and Don Best. Just see if the market is still going that way, and it is. I mean, we might get the plus money on Trevor Peek. I think you nailed it too, man. I mean, poor Trevor, he gets a harder fight. Replacement fighter comes in and he gets a harder fight. So, and the people are betting Chepe because, man, he's a technical, just a bruiser, man. I mean, he hits hard. He's technical with that skill set. So he's going to be far more technical than the brawling style of Trevor Peek, like you said. And he's fun to watch. So he's got advantages on the ground. He's got advantage. He's a better mixed martial artist. He's got that experience. Like you said, you look at his resume, he's been with a lot of good talent, win or lose. So Chepe is the real deal, man. And he's going to be dangerous because of the way Trevor Peek fights. He just exposes himself so much. He wings punches, heavy hitter, of course. But you know what? And I backed him in the past, and he's made me money already in the UFC. He's going to fight for your money. The guy doesn't take he's been hurt. It doesn't matter. He's not going to give up. He's not going to quit. He's got that heart. He's got the durability. So all of you Chepe fans that are coming in, I get it. I understand why you're betting him in this matchup. He's more technical. Probably if he can stay a little disciplined, he's going to have his moments against Trevor Peek, and he's probably going to have opportunities to finish the fight. But the durability, the Trevor Peek durability. And you know what? All he needs is 1 or 2 to end the fight, man. So Chepe's been knocked out. Like you said, that's what I question, his durability in the past. And I question it against a guy like Trevor Peek even more so, especially with everybody flooding in that way. If you're getting Trevor Peek at plus money in what should be a stand-up fight, even though he's a little sloppy and reckless at times, dude, I trust his durability. You're giving me plus money, I'm going to probably end up biting on Trevor Peek. But keep the market going the way it is right now, because I'd rather have plus 25 plus. Dude, if it's going the way it's going, we might get something crazy like that too. So I'll be your Huckleberry, and I will bite on Trevor Peek. Again, I understand he might go out there and look like a defensive mess, but you know what? Like you said, he's a different type of breed, man. If he gets his skill set a little bit more technical with more time in. I like what you said about the 4 months, and if it was 4 months more, I agree with you, man. In the next year or so, if he keeps on the right track and keeps on improving, wow, this guy's going to be even more dynamite. But for right now, I would not lay chalk against a guy like Trevor Peek.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And Nick, I got to talk for just a second about how underrated this guy has been. And I think that's why, even though the market is going against us on this one, this is the Charles Oliveira spot, Nick. This is what we're talking about. You got to just sack up, trust your balls, and step in front of the market sometimes. And that's what this is for me here, because he's a dog at 5-0 to Common Worthy, knocks him out in the first round. He's a dog on Dana White's Contender Series, 6-0 to Malik Lewis, who's also undefeated, knocks him out in the second round. He comes in as a favorite finally to the Ghost Pepper, which a lot of people were like, oh boy, I don't know. Do we trust him as a favorite now? Knocks him out in the first round. Like, he's one of these special freaks of nature. And I say that with the kindest intentions possible, that he's just a monster physically. And if you're not on his level, he will run through you. And I think Chepe is going to meet him in the center. And the veteran savvy in this case isn't going to be enough.
Yeah, I can definitely see it going that way, man. That's what I'm saying. I can't believe how many people are speeding. But again, it's the numbers that people have to understand what people are chasing. So if they got Chepe at a plus number, good, could be an excellent bet when it's all said and done. And I understand the value that you're getting on that. So it's the numbers we're saying right now. It's a numbers game. Period. That's what you got to look at the market. I mean, it's easy. Picking and betting, I know we touched on this earlier in the show a little bit too. You did. Picking and betting are two completely different animals. So you can go out there and pick at a 70% rate, 65, 70% rate, but the betting is not going to be quite that high, right? If you're a successful bettor, it's going to be a little bit lower, but it is a different beast. And again, we're looking at numbers here. So that's why the peak side is a little bit more intriguing to me as well.
Exactly. And again, well said, Nick. Thank you very much. I do want to shout out my guy, Dixon Sider. That's another great point as well, because unless I'm mistaken, and I'm going off memory here, I know the Contender Series fight was a quick turnaround. I mean, we're talking like super short notice. He got the Common Worthy fight. He got the call for Contender. So I know that was a short notice fight. And I kind of think the Ghost Pepper one was a little short notice as well. I'm going off memory. I can't confirm that. But the fact that he's got a full training camp, even if he's not going to be a ton improved like we're talking about, simply the fact that his cardio and his everything needs to be peaking at the right time. Peaking, unintentional. I think it's going to be a big benefit to him and probably just means he's that much more of a monster on Saturday. So the number's right at -110. The number's sexy at plus. So we've got 192 live listeners right now, Nick. Let's not flood the market, folks. Let's all just wait a day or two. If we get pluses, then we can all move.
There's another side note too. Chepe, I think he has trouble making weight at times too. So that's going to be an interesting. He's coming in on short notice. Let's see how well he makes that weight cut. So he could struggle with the scale too. Hopefully not, man. I mean, we all want to see the fight go on, and I hate to see people coming in heavy. So hopefully everything goes smooth on that end. But we could see it. This is a spot where we could see some question marks on the scale, I guess.
Yeah, professionally speaking, Nick, I also agree with you that you hate to see that happen, but makes my Friday show a whole lot more fun when people miss weight. So if he comes in heavy, I won't complain too much.
All right, there we go. That's fair enough.
All right. Next up, everybody, we got Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on short notice replacement Joshua Van. Maybe. I don't think we're ever gonna see Zhalgas Zhumagulov in the cage again. Like, I've just given up at this point. I don't think the poor guy is ever gonna compete in the UFC again. He's gonna have like 6 canceled fights, and they're just gonna cut him because they can't get him booked anymore. I feel for the guy. We've talked about him now like 4 weeks straight in a row. So y'all have heard what Zhalgas Zhumagulov does well. You've heard what he does poorly. He's well-rounded. He used to fight on the Russian scene, so he can wrestle. He's not great at it. He's got decent power. He's a good grappler. He's defensively solid. He's the bar, man. He's the UFC bar. If you get by Zhalgas Zhumagulov, you belong here. If you're not UFC caliber, and maybe if you are slightly, he'll go to a split decision with you. He doesn't separate himself from his opponents ever, anytime whatsoever. The fight is going to be close. So we got to talk about Joshua Van in this spot. And Van looks like fun to me, Nick. I'll be honest with you. He immediately leapt off the page to me as a younger, more promising version of Maki Pitolo. He's got that same frame. He's got like the skinny, washboard shredded abs, and then he's all shoulders and arms after that. He wings big power hooks at people. He definitely believes in his power. He's extremely opportunistic, whether it's a sub. I mean, dude's got a calf slicer on his win record. Like, he will find anything. He's a dog on a bone, and he's got great killer instincts. So if he hurts you, he absolutely will finish you. I like this kid. I think he's just maybe getting the call to the UFC a little too quick. They needed somebody to step in and fight Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and he raised his hand. So Here we go. 7-1 Joshua Van is stepping in. I do want to say real quick, I had to look it up, Nick. He's from Myanmar. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of that. I guess technically that's Burma, out of Southeast Asia. So if any of you were curious where this kid hails from, he's from Southeast Asia. That's where he's coming in from. But he's got 5 wins by knockout, 2 wins by sub. I'm very excited to see what he's capable of here, but I kind of expect he's going to get the vet lesson from Zhalgas Zhumagulov. How about you, Nick?
I agree with you completely. I like what I see from Van, man. And poor Zhumagulov. Let me tell you something right now. I bet on him against Johnson, split decision loss. I bet on him against Molina, split decision loss. The value was there, man. He should have won those fights. The judges don't like the guy for some reason. It's so funny because we've talked about it on UFC On the Line. In fact, Brendan has called me the president of the Zhumagulov fan club. I mean, that's how much I respect the guy because, like you said, you nailed it on the head. If you could get by this guy, you're legit. Like, this guy's a tough out with all the experience that he's got. He's faced the best of the best in the weight class. So Zhumagulov, no easy out. And I think he's going to be a little bit too much for Van in this spot. I do like what you said about Van. I see it. The power's there. The tenacity's there. He's just a little bit too raw. I think he's going to be a little bit slower in this spot, too. He is taking the fight on short notice. And we have to say he did have a fight coming up on the Contender Series, I believe in August. So he was preparing for that fight, and he just kind of slid in the door a little bit quicker, taking this opportunity. So he's been on the UFC's radar already. So, and again, he fits the part. I think this guy's going to be a nice addition to the flyweight division. The problem is, again, it's just going to be too much too soon on short notice. I just think Zhumagulov's going to be a step ahead of him here. And if any flaws that I've seen so far in his game, he's hit him on the feet a little bit. He gets tagged, but he absorbs the punishment okay. I think Zhumagulov can have some success on the feet, but it's on the ground. If Zhumagulov gets him on the ground, I think he could have a lot of success if he gets top position or takes his back. Those are some areas still that I think Van has to work on and get a little bit better defensively on the ground. That's where, if you look back at his record and he has a loss, it's because he fought a wrestler, was able to kind of take him down a little bit and get his back, whatever the case may be late. And I think the second round of the fight. But that being said, it is a situation here where it's a good spot and opportunity for him. And I mean, again, a lot of us in the community are probably going to be pulling for Zhumagulov, though, in a way. I mean, it's hard not to get on this guy's bandwagon. I love the fact that he's also taking some time on social media with the haircuts. Yep. He's kind of playing to the fandom, so to speak, that's going on right now. So hard not to love this guy. He should be, better than his record indicates right now in the UFC for sure. He belongs on the roster, and I just like to see him get this win. So I hope he comes through here. I think it's a favorite or pass situation in this spot. If you're getting him under 200, it gets a little sketchy at that price or over, but if you're getting him under 200, I think it might be worth a small stab on Zhumagulov here in this spot.
I completely agree with you, Nick. I think it's favored or pass for sure. This is a young kid who's unproven. I would have liked to see him on the Contender Series in a fight or two. You know what I mean? Like 7-1, that's when you're ripe. That's the right time. Taking on a guy like Zhalgas, that just feels like it's going to be too big of a leap, especially on short notice for your debut. But hey, you never know. Some of these kids that are absolute studs, they take these opportunities and they shine. They, announce themselves to the world. So maybe we get that from Van on Saturday. We're all praying for Zhalgas, man. He cut his hair and everything. Probably lost one of his 6 wives for rocking that haircut for the last 2 months. He needs the full paycheck. So come on, Zhalgas, get one. We're all rooting for you. And hopefully he gets his hand raised here on Saturday because we know Van will bounce back. We know Van will have more opportunities down the line. Zhalgas, I think it's one more loss and he's getting his walking papers, man.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so too. So he has to win this fight, man. And he, like I said, I want to see him stay on the roster. At least a few more fights, man.
I hear you. I agree. Hopefully so. Nasty Nate in the house saying not one name in green. That's what's up, man. If you guys don't know, you get the little badges for supporting us here on Pub Sports Radio. Consider becoming a member. That helps us out if you would. We love it. We appreciate it. Next fight up. I rocked the shirt just for this one here, Nick. We're ready to go. Team Savage, baby. You guys already know what's going on. I don't even need to break it down. This is Twitter's Civil War of the Week, Nick. Tabatha Ricci taking on Gillian Robertson. 2 of the greatest simp armies in the world clashing here on Saturday, UFC Jacksonville. And I've been accused of betting with my heart as opposed to betting with my head. And I'm going, nah. That's old Clint. That's Clint from 2022. Clint from 2023 doesn't play that game. I've already got a 2-unit bet here on Gillian Robertson, Nick. I took the plus 105, and I'm a little bit surprised. I shouldn't have been, I shouldn't have been. I'm a little bit surprised to see the market kind of move the other way here. And frankly, I'm more than okay with potentially adding another unit at a better number if it keeps going. Tabatha Ricci is a minus 130 favorite. You got plus 110 on Gillian. And I just think 115 Gillian's a problem, Nick. That's all this comes down to me. So she's going to be at an athleticism disadvantage. We know this. Tabatha Ricci is a strong wrestler. She's got great cardio. She's got an overwhelming pace, but she's a little undersized here. She reminds me a lot of Tecia Torres. She makes up for it with her explosivity, with her cardio, but really, I think she's a 105er. I think she should be fighting a weight class lower. The UFC just doesn't have 105 for her to compete in, so she's stuck fighting these monsters at 115. She is a BJJ black belt herself, really relies on her wrestling, but I think she's going to struggle taking down someone like Gillian Robertson. Gillian has no problem doing whatever it takes to get the fight in a grappling position. She'll pull guard and look for sweeps and reversals off of her back if she needs to. We've seen it happen. She'll do that before. But Gillian comes down to one thing for me, Nick. It's funny because you can tell me all the numbers and all the stats, and I've boiled it all down to a science. If Gillian is stronger than her opponent physically, she wins. End of story. Like, that's all it comes down to for her. If she can bully you in the grappling, she's better at jiu-jitsu than you. She's got a tighter squeeze than you. She will submit you. And if you're defensively solid enough to survive that, she will either pound you out with elbows or hang on your back until the bell dings, and then she wins a decision. That's it. That's the only outcome. So in this case, Tabatha Ricci, you've got to trust her to either stay outside, stick and move for 15 straight minutes, which theoretically she could do, but I think there's a very small chance of that happening because she's such a capable grappler herself. She charges in for double legs. She takes people down. She enforces the wrestling herself. We saw her get kicked off. We saw her get reversed by Jessica Penne. And Nick, I don't think I need to tell you Jessica Penne is extremely old. She's 40 at this point. She's not a physically strong person at 115 pounds. In fact, she's one of those stringy, long, lanky bantamweight type, or not bantamweight, but stringy, lanky type of fighters. Not a lot of muscle on her frame. Never has been. Primary grappler. Gillian will absolutely be able to get her hips back in this situation. She'll be able to stuff takedowns. She'll be able to reverse. She'll be able to sweep. She'll be able to kick Tabatha off her if she wants to. I just don't understand how people aren't seeing that the size advantage for Gillian in this weight class, I think, is going to be a problem. And she's going to be 4 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. Give me Gillian all day. Team Savage, baby. What about you, Nick?
I agree with you. And
let's go.
Yanni and I both may or may not have a bet on UFC on the line, which is already should be up on Fight Pass. I haven't checked yet, but it should be available on UFC Fight Pass, so check it out. But I agree with you. Here's the thing, man. I think this is a spot where you got to kind of look at the plus money either way. So if Ricci was at the plus money side of things, I can understand why. And I do agree with you. I think she's going to be too big for Ricci in this spot. Robertson, man, 115 pounds. I mean, Piera Rodrigues is no joke. And she went through her pretty impressively in her last fight, right? So I think that's a kind of indicator of what kind of success she's able to have here in this spot. And I agree. If she's the bigger, stronger fighter, she's going to have success. She's going to be the bigger, stronger fighter here. They both have tremendous jiu-jitsu. But let me just play devil's advocate here, though, Clint. If we lose this fight, like I said, I'm leaning with you on the Robertson side. It's just because defensively sometimes she gets herself in spots on the ground. Armbar for Ricci is probably the best path to victory here. If she's not minding her, spots and respecting Ricci's ground game. If Ricci gets on her back, we have to be careful about that. That's my concern here because Ricci's such a slick. She's a little bit more technical, I think, than Robertson. Both of them are fantastic. And I love the fact that you said Robertson has that squeeze too. She's got the technique and she's got that squeeze. But I think still, if you're looking at the Tabatha Ricci side, she's just a little bit more technical and a little bit more savvy when it comes to pure BJJ. Now, I still think that, again, the reason you're going for Robertson here is because I think she's going to have the grappling advantage. She's going to get top position, and she could probably avoid that arm bar or a submission similar to that. That's how, again, I think her kryptonite, that's how she loses. And I do believe that Robertson can get it done. Take her back, like you said, kind of, even if she doesn't sub Ricci, she's going to be able to do enough on the ground, I think, to win the fight even on the card. So for me, I do like Robertson, and you got to chase that plus money. But there has been some sharp action coming in on the Tabatha Ricci side. For me personally, if you're going to back that side, take a stab at a prop. And if you get specific props, like a lot of these sports books right now across the markets are offering, maybe specifically by armbar, You know what I mean? And you're going to get a crazy number with some of those props. I think that's the way you kind of go if you're back into Ricci side, because I think if it hits the cards, I don't think she wins. She's going to lose 29, 28, maybe 30 to 27 on the scorecards, or she gets finished on the ground, which is not going to be an easy task. But I think if anybody could do it, it's a girl like Gillian.
Completely agree with you, Nick. And I'll be honest with you, looking back through Gillian's run, she's only been tapped once. And you know who that was?
I have to think back now.
Okay, I was going to say, can you remember?
I can't off the top of my head. I cannot.
All right, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I can't off the top of my head. Go ahead. It's a Brazilian. Right. Obviously, it was a Brazilian fighter.
You're correct. Okay. It was Mayra Bueno Silva, Taira. And folks, Taira has seven wins by submission and is massive at 125 pounds. This girl is slated to face Holly Holm next. Like, this is a big bullying finishing machine, the exact problem for Gillian at 125 pounds. That's who got her arm. She's only been subbed once. That's the only person to catch her with a submission. She got a little over aggressive and Macy punched her out back when she was still a fresh-faced baby in the UFC, so can't really hold that too much against her. But she fought Veronica Hardy, who people now realize is not a fraud and is actually a very good fighter. She fought Sarah Frota, who, by the way, was another physical monster, and a lot of people expected she was going to get beat by. She's fought Poliana Botello, Courtney Casey. She had a grappling match with Pearl Gonzalez. Taila Santos, who's another extremely respectable name in the grappling realm, especially at the weight class above. She didn't tap her. That was a decision. So I think Gillian has proven that she's got the submission defense that she needs at this stage of her career to avoid Tabatha Ricci. And actually, I'm gonna where's the hat? Where's the hat, Nick? I need it. It's early. I'm bringing it out. I need the tinfoil cap here.
I like it. I
think Gillian's gonna TKO her. I actually think she's gonna be ineffective with her submission grappling. We're gonna see Tabatha Ricci good enough to defend those positions. And kind of like what we saw in the Courtney Casey fight, she's going to go, okay, I can't submit you, fine. And then she just starts dropping elbows. I think she's going to be too big, too strong, and we might actually get a Gillian Robertson TKO on Saturday. If she can't get the TKO, then I think it's going to be a decision. But I want that number, Nick. I'm going to see what that TKO number comes out because I think it's going to be stupid.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it, man. I hope your prediction comes true because, like I said, I'll probably have my own action on that side as well. Like I said, check out UFC on the line.
Absolutely. You guys make no, not shameless at all. We're huge fans of you guys. You and Gianni, both regulars here on the show. We love you guys. Thank you so much for donating your time to us. So definitely shout that out. I make sure I pop in and watch on the line every single week to get the info. As long as we're not chatting with each other, it's the quickest way to you guys to see what's going on. So make sure you guys check out their show as well. Now, real quickly, Nick, if you could just forgive me for 1 second, I did tease that there was some kind of an announcement coming here on the show, and it's time for me to go ahead and let you guys know what's going on. I mentioned last week that I actually lost my sponsorship with Superbook Sports. Unfortunately, they're kind of redoing their whole marketing situation, and what I was doing for them didn't fit with their future plan anymore. It's a bummer. I was sad. I was disappointed, but in this business, it happens. You yourself know exactly how that goes, Nick. So I've been in the market for a sponsor, and believe it or not, folks, the shoes have been filled. It was far faster than I expected. It was way quicker than I ever would have imagined, but I am so excited to share with you guys who the new sponsor of this show moving forward is going to be. Get that up in the upper left-hand corner there. We are now brought to you by none other than Bet Openly, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about this product. Here's the cool thing. Those of you who have been following me, listening to me, watching my show for however long since I've done it, the last 4 years, you know I don't agree to sponsors. I don't bring things to you guys unless I agree with them myself, unless I actually think there's something that my viewers will like or would benefit from. And this is maybe the coolest platform coming to sports betting these days. So I really need to explain it to you real quickly here for you. Bear with me. Bet Openly is peer-to-peer betting. And what that means is you actually get to bet with other gamblers. Now, I know a lot of you are like, what do we need a site to do that for? Here's the coolest thing. It's legal. It's regulated. It acts exactly like a sports book. So you sign up for an account, you deposit your cash, and you've got that available to you. You bet lines the exact same way you would with a sports book, except if somebody, books balance their action. Nick, you know all about that. If someone's balancing out your action, you're getting reduced juice. So the lines at Bet Openly are far better than the lines that you're going to get at any book that's active and available, because you and your opposition, I guess, will both be able to play better numbers going head to head on it. No more making bets with people on Twitter and then having that handle deleted and unavailable when you win your $50 person-to-person bet. And here's the cool part, folks. A lot of people have wanted to make bets with me. I know we've done some, shoey bets before. We've done some song bets. I've got actually a shoey bet with our guy Sparring with Reality on the Ricci and Gillian Robertson fight this week. But what we're going to do is, you guys can get some Clint dollars. You guys can get some die-hard dollars, some Clint bucks. I'm going to start putting out my action and a couple of fights per card. I'm going to make sure I use Bet Openly, and you guys can sign up and come go head-to-head with me if you disagree with me on a fight, and you can take your boys' money. People have been asking for it, Nick. People have been wanting to bet me, and I always say, oh, you know what? Like, I just bet with the books. I'm not going to take your guys' money. That feels weird. This provides a safe, legal, regulated way to actually do that, and it's going to be fun. So I'm going to start tweeting stuff like that out. The first thing I want to do with you guys is I'm going to stick this link right here in the chat, especially with this being the first show with them as the new sponsor. If you all could drive a little traffic for me, just click that link. If you want to join us on Bet Openly, go ahead, deposit, play around with it. Obviously, we will get there, but make sure you click the link for me so they see a nice big pop for being the sponsor of the show and having our first episode here on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Thank you again, as always, to you guys all for sticking with me through this journey. I'm extremely excited to deal with my new sponsor here moving forward. So real quick, let's scratch the itch here on these other couple of things. Pub Sports Radio, you guys know the deal. Weekly contests, free $100. All you got to do is beat the Pub Sports Radio personalities, win the contest. You get $100, top prize to the winner. We already talked about Spectation Sports. That's how we discovered Trevor Peak. Awesome fights coming up. Lights Out Championship on Saturday. Promo code DIEHARD, 20% off. And then, of course, the Sharp app. The guy that won the PGA this weekend, Nick, he was like 80-1. The guys on the Sharp app had him as a top 3 option. They do models and projections and stuff like that. They had him as a top 3 option for golf on Saturday, so they're more than just a pick service. Check out the Sharp app. They're good at what they do. Thank you guys again so much for sticking with me through that, and thank you. Welcome aboard to Bet Openly. They're officially the sponsor of the Die Hard MMA podcast. We'll bring it back around. This is Nick Kleydson. We're talking UFC Jacksonville. Let's move right along here to the next fight. Mateusz Rębecki taking on Loik Radzhabov in another absolute barn burner of a fight, Nick. This one's going to be so much fun. I really like Mateusz Rębecki. Coming off the Contender Series, there's some frauds. There's some guys who seem like they're legit. Mateusz Rębecki falls in the seems like he's legit category to me. I mean, he's tough. He's got a great gas tank. He sells out for that overhand right. He'll throw flying knees. I mean, frankly, he's reckless. This guy is striking. He does everything he can to punch his way into being in front of your face, and then he tries to take you down. Just relentless aggression with the takedowns, digging hooks to the body. He really sticks to you chest to chest, heavy top pressure, top position, strong hips, and he can keep it up for 15 straight minutes. 17-1. This guy looks good. Now, he's coming off his last win where he basically stomped the human punching bag, Nick Fiore. People thought that guy was going to beat Chase Hooper. You'll love to see it. He beat him pillar to post for 15 straight minutes, Nick. So can't take anything away from his last performance. But he hasn't really fought anybody. Even at 17-1, his level of competition is a little questionable to me. Loik Radzhabov, on the other hand, 17-4-1. Got those 4 L's in there. Very similar record, just a tidbit more experience. This guy is big. He is really, really big. He's got big power in his hands. He hits hard, and it's almost a mirror matchup in my opinion. He does the same damn thing. He punches his way in. He grabs onto you. He drags you to the mat. He flows well from top position. He always makes sure you're carrying his weight, which you love to see. That wears people out, grinds on the gas tank. He's going to be 4 inches taller. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's never been finished. Even though he tends to kind of get a little tired in that 3rd round because of the weight cut, because of the size, you still can't get him out of there. No one's actually been able to finish the guy. So honestly, Nick, this is a spot where I'm not sure why the line is the way it is, except for the Dana White's Contender Series rub. These guys seem like mirror images of each other. They're the same guy. One is just a whole hell of a lot bigger. So I've already bet Loik. I got Loik at plus 120 going into this spot, and the market continues to move the other direction. This is another spot similar to the Gillian situation, Nick, where honestly, I'll put my balls on the table. I have zero issues saying you guys are wrong, and I'll put more money on Loik Radzhabov. He's currently plus 130. Mateusz Rębecki is minus 150. I'm going to wait and see where this number goes. But I'll throw another unit on Loik Radzhabov if the number keeps getting better, because I think he's winning this fight on Saturday. What do you like here?
Another spot where we agree, man. I am impressed with Rębecki. You know, what he brings to the table, like you said, I think he's going to have a little bit of a speed advantage here if this stays on the feet for a little while, though. That's one thing, because Radzhabov, you know, he's hittable at times, but you said he's tough as nails. That size advantage is going to come to play, and it's going to get really interesting in round 2 and round 3. So I can see maybe Rębecki kind of coming in, looking to kind of be a little bit more busy in the first round, maybe stealing the first round, but he does slow down. I know you said he's got a great gas tank, but he does tend to slow down as the fight goes a little bit too. But he's the type of fighter that obviously can fight tired in round 3 or beyond if he has to later on. So I understand that he's going to be there for the long run. Both these guys are durable, but I just think Radzhabov, excuse me, this is tongue twister for me with both these guys being so similar.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. So Radzhabov is just going to be, again, a little bit bigger, stronger. I think he can find himself in top position in round 2, round 3, a little bit more so. But it's going to be a very competitive, close fight. So I think this thing probably hits the scorecards, or if anything, Radzhabov gets a finish in this spot. If he does, you got to chase some plus monies. But there is a lot of sharp action hitting the market right now on the Rębecki side. They think that he is the real deal, and I think the pace that he's going to try to push here is going to be the difference here for a lot of the sharps that are betting that side. So right now, it seems like we're not on the popular side of things, and the sharper action is laying the chalk here, and that's why you're seeing the line kind of climb. But I have a feeling we'll see some action back on Radzhabov as we get closer to fight day.
I agree. Couldn't agree more, Nick, and I think that we've seen now. I have my patented Dana White's Contender Series fade angle. It's not something I've gone to in the last couple of months. It was a blind angle that I was playing. I talked to you guys all about it when you had me on the podcast, and it just, the opportunities haven't been there as much lately. What I'm discovering is some of these guys with the Contender Series, it's not their debut, because now they're matchmaking them softer. All those guys were losing their UFC debuts. The UFC has adjusted. They're going, all right, let's get these guys wins coming off the Contender Series. It's their next 2 fights. It's their next 3 fights. And then you find that opportunity to fade them coming off the Contender Series. They've still got all the hype in the world. I mentioned Nick Fiore. I mentioned the Chase Hooper spot. Like, this guy is a walking punching bag. And everybody and their mother is seeing Mateusz Rębecki at 100%, best performance of his life, beat this kid up, pillar to post. That's the last thing that we saw. What happens when he fights somebody who punches back? What happens when he has to deal with a grappler who's bigger and physically stronger than he is, who's got more experience than he does, who's fought in shows like the PFL against championship caliber competition? This is a big step up for Mateusz Rębecki. So I think he absolutely can win this fight. I don't want to sell Rębecki short. This isn't a mortgage your house type of spot, but I think the wrong guy's favored, Nick. That's kind of all it comes down to for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, this is another spot that we were talking about earlier with Robertson, that you got to kind of chase the plus money here. So people are laying the chalk the other way. Let's see where it goes. And I think you take a bite at the dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to just scroll back here real quick. Mike saying, let's do it. I'll take Ricci. You take your ginger. Mike, absolutely. So what I'm going to do after the show, I posted the link to bet openly in there. So you guys go ahead, get on there, set up an account, get deposited, because it's going to be a race. I'm going to go ahead and post on Twitter a little bit later. I'll get some bets out on Bet Openly for you guys to come take my action and be on the opposite side of that. But it'll be first come, first serve. So if you guys get signed up and deposited, you'll be the ones who will get my action, and you can shout out to the world that you beat me. Unless, of course, Gillian wins, and then I'm taking your money instead. All right. Next fight on the docket. Another really good fight, Nick. Randy Brown taking on Wellington Turman. And I gotta tell you guys, I think I've made a little bit of a mistake. And see, look at this. Look at me. Look at your guy. Growing up, admitting mistakes, reviewing errors in the game plan. I think I was a little harsh on Wellington Turman. You know, he came to the UFC, Nick, and this guy, he got starched by Andrew Sanchez. And I just went, what a fraud. Fade, forever fade. If you get knocked out by Andrew Sanchez, you are not going to make it in this business. And I wrote him off. And I kind of went back and I looked over everything with this Wellington Turman kid recently. And he's still only 26 years old. I thought he was like 33. I thought he was a busted prospect with a broken chin. He's not. He got knocked out by Andrew Sanchez. You know, we talk about these young kids with these crazy opportunities. He was 23 years old. That was him getting his feet wet in the biggest organization in the world, and he got clipped by a guy who was better than him at that stage. I kind of think I need to not label him a fraud for that now. You know what I mean? Looking back on it, I think I was a little quick on the punch there. He's training at Taira MMA, so he's working with guys like Glover and Pereira. He's got heavy hands. He's making big improvements in his boxing. We saw that in his last fight. He is capable of taking a punch now. He's able to roll with these shots. You know, his 15-minute war with Andre Petrowski, I couldn't believe it, Nick. The shots he took, I expected, you know, in my brain, I'm like, this guy's going down if he gets touched by Petrowski. He wore those shots well, and he just kept on coming. The gas tank looked like it had improved. He was capable of grappling in that spot. It looked like Petrowski might be the one fading there in the second round, not him. So it was a very good performance from a very young fighter, in my opinion. He's also a very high-level grappler. You know, he's got that BJJ black belt. He's always had that. That's where he got his start. He really is just kind of turning into his master there, Glover Teixeira. He looks like he's becoming a carbon copy a little bit of what Glover was. But he's taken on a guy in Randy Brown who is almost the opposite. It seems like Randy jumped all the way up to being, you know, he jumped from prospect to contender like super fast. He's 32 years old. Now this is Rude Boy, right? Like, I don't know how much different we're going to get when it comes to Randy Brown. We've kind of seen what he does. He took a big L from Jack Della Maddalena in his last fight. Just a couple months ago, he got club and subbed bad. I mean, we called that one. That was fun. Jack Della is the goods. But he's really struggled taking that step up in competition. He lost to Bilal. He lost to Nico Price. He got knocked out by Vicente Luque. So when you're this mid to low tier type of fighter, that's where he can style on you. But when you're somebody who's a true contender, Randy Brown seems to just kind of come up a little bit short. He's tall, he's long, he's got that flowing striking from the outside. He gets a little overconfident. He showboats a little bit in there. He talks trash mid-fight to his opponents. But he also has gone from being this guy that we thought of as like a massive knockout threat to kind of being a coast when you're ahead type of fighter. You know, his last couple wins have come by decision. The Chaos Williams fight, that was a split that I felt could have gone either way. And he really let Chaos kind of hang around in that fight. He won a decision over Francisco Trinaldo where he was on his back for a lot of that third round. Looked like he was slowing down. Looked like he was tiring out. He got a little exposed on the grappling in that fight against, frankly, an old man, Nick. And I think I'm going to take a wild stand here and go ahead and bet against him. I got plus 205 on Wellington Turman, who is cutting down to 170 pounds in this spot. It's another striker versus grappler spot. It's another spot where Randy Brown is obviously going to be the slicker striker on the feet, but I think Wellington can get the respect with his heavy hands when and if he does manage to land. But I think Wellington's going to have a huge advantage on the ground. And when these guys are grappling, he can keep his gas tank where it needs to be by burning time when he's on top, because Brown doesn't always have that sense of urgency to pop back up to his feet. And even when you watch like the fight with, I'm losing his name here real quick. Misha Serkinov. I bet Misha Serkinov massively against Wellington Turman, Nick. I really thought he was going to show this kid the door. Wellington climbed him like a tree. He didn't need the takedown. He went from body lock to back take, and he was so smooth with it. I think that's on the table here against Randy Brown. Even if he can't quite get the takedown from the body lock, I think he can wrap him up and drag him to the floor. You know, that kind of a situation. And if he gets the grappling going, I do think he's going to end up tapping this guy out, because Brown seems to have some defensive liabilities when it comes to the mat. But I mean, this is a numbers play. I'm kind of banking on Wellington Turman moving to his right weight class and being better at 170. It's a little bit of a leap of faith. I recognize that. But I'm going to take the shot. What do you think, Nick? Am I crazy for doing this?
No, I mean, it's hard to lay the chalk in this spot because it's just we don't know how Turman is going to look with this weight drop. He hasn't been at 170 since early in his career, right? I mean, it's been a long time. So, and he's faced some decent competition and he's been under the radar for sure. So, Turman has the intangibles. He's got the skill set to cause Brown a lot of problems. But what I don't like here is, I mean, Brown will have that length. He will have the striking advantage. He's been in there with beasts on the feet. Like you mentioned the Chaos Williams fight. I mean, Chaos, I was on Chaos in that fight, to be honest with you. And it was close enough where I wasn't kind of mad at that loss. It could have went either way, of course. It was one of those situations where I was close to getting that. But, I mean, a lot of respect for Brown there, too. Chaos is a dangerous opponent, man. He's one of the hardest hitters in the weight class, even though he's not the most technical guy out there. So I just think that Brown has developed into that spot where he's been tested against some heavy hitters, and his striking continues to shine time and time again. His takedown defense continues to improve, and he's just becoming a better fighter. Now, his setback he's coming off of right now to Madalena, like you said, I mean, dude, he's a real deal, of course.
Really
seems like, he's the part. So it's not necessarily a bad loss. A lot of us were expecting to kind of see that happen. Now he's bouncing back, like you said, with kind of what seems to be, no disrespect to Turman, but a mid-tier kind of UFC level fighter. And Brown usually has success, like you mentioned, against guys like that. So I think if Brown fights smart here, it's his fight to win or lose. But I agree, it's hard to lay the chalk anything minus 200 or minus 250. I understand why people are coming in on the dog. It's tempting to look at the Turman side. Me personally, I'm kind of going to stay away and look how it plays out and look how good Turman wins here. Or if he looks good with a win here. If he gets his win, I mean, he's going to go a long way in the welterweight division. This is a good stepping stone for him. They'll probably match him up with somebody solid in his next turnaround, and then, we'll see where it goes from there. So this is an important fight for both guys. For Brown, if he loses this fight, man, his stock is going to be drastically lower because I don't think Turman, even though, again, he's probably disrespected by most of the fans out there because he's better than what people anticipate. But if he comes here and smokes Brown's stock is going to drop to the point where maybe in his next fight, we can rebound and just get him at a buy low type of price. So there's a lot of little mini side intriguing factors here in this fight. I'm definitely looking for how it plays out, but I'm probably going to stay away and just watch.
Okay, I can understand that. I also don't mind violence, Nick. I don't mind unders in this spot because if Wellington Turman doesn't cut well to 170 and doesn't have the frame for it, maybe he's a little compromised. The gas tank is worse. Randy Brown probably gets back on track with a finish here. He probably can take a wounded Wellington Turman out of that cage because we know this is his home and he's high level. So I think he can finish if that's the case. And then if Wellington does win, I think it's more finish than decision. Granted, he could just sit on his chest and use that grappling and win a decision. But I think more often than not, if he's in the driver's seat, he's probably also finishing. So I kind of think under makes some sense here in this spot. I would be okay with a violence bet. And I know it's a little crazy, folks. It's a 1-unit shot. You guys know me. I'll take my moments. I'll take my stab. Plus 205. I'll look like a fool on Sunday if he ends up getting knocked out in the first round or something. I'm here for it. It's what I do. Shout out my guy VB in the chat hanging out. Guys, if you don't know who VB is, make sure you check him out. He does an awesome show. He's having a hell of a year himself. Very, very sharp dude. Unfortunately, we're head-to-head a decent bit this week, so I'm not looking forward to that. Our guy Real Deal Prime in the house with the wrestling rules. You know it, man. You know it. All right. We've got 196 live viewers, everybody. Like I said before, please do me a favor. Smash that like button if you have not already. And let's talk about these last couple of fights. What we've got coming up here is just an awesome fight. Lots of moving parts. Big-time matchup. Neil Magny taking on Phil Rowe. This is the first time that Phil Rowe is going to face somebody with the same level of physicality as him, Nick. These guys have a matching. And again, we'll find out, at face-off day if this is accurate or not. But per the UFC stats, they're both 6'3", with an 80-inch reach. That doesn't happen very often. Like, both these guys are so used to being taller and longer than their opponents. It's extremely rare that they have somebody that's willing, or not willing, but able or capable of matching that physicality. Phil Rowe is a finisher. Even moving up to the UFC, 100% finish rate. Quite frankly, Nick, he shocked me in his last fight when he moved from knocking out Jason Witt, who's the chinniest man on the planet, to knocking out Nico Price. That was a huge jump in competition. And you go from one guy who's made out of paper mache to a guy who's made out of granite and frankly doesn't get finished. And he still passed that test. Big eye opener for me as to the finishing capability of Phil Rowe. However, Nico Price is not known for his savviness. He's not known for his high-level game plans. The man just kind of brawls. He hits like a truck, but he just gets in there and fights. That's not what's happening here. Now Phil Rowe is taking on Neil Magny, who you guys know is a bit of a money train for me. This man drags you into his fight. Period. End of story. Sentence over. He will hang on you. He will pin you up against the cage. If you get even close to where he can arm drag you and get you into a clinch, he makes you carry that weight, and he just slowly chips away and gasses you out and drains you. And by the end of the 15 minutes, he's pushing the pace in the third round, and you're going, what the hell happened? The people that beat Neil Magny are legitimate top contenders. He got smoked on the mat by Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shout out to our guy Liam Picks Fights. Shavkat Lokhmonov, he calls him. He got smoked out of there by Gilbert Burns. You know, Michael Chiesa was able to take him down and smother him. But unless you can expose this man grappling, physically, he's going to do the exact opposite and do it to you. He's got the win over Max Griffin. He beat Jeff Neal. He beat Robbie Lawler. And this is back in 2020. Before that sounds like it was a joke. He beat Rocco Martin. He beat the Leech. Like, you have got to be legit to get by Neil Magny. And like I said, he's always disrespected. He's been a money train for me. He ends up being close to pick 'em or a playable favorite price. And I just keep going back to the well, Nick. I've done a good job of avoiding these last couple spots, the Shavkat, the Burns. But it's time to go back to war with my guy Neil Magny, in my opinion. I think that his opponent, Phil Rowe, is very heavily predicated on getting a finish in this spot. Could he finish him? Absolutely, especially because he can catch him with shots that maybe nobody else could because he's got that same reach. He'll be able to connect with him. But I also think that this is a big, big step up for Phil Rowe. And Phil, while he's a spectacular grappler, he's not a very good wrestler. He ends up playing off of his back a lot. He's not going to take Neil down and take his back and smother him and climb him like a tree and arm triangle him the way Gilbert Burns did. In fact, I think he's going to look to strike. He may be the one on his back. He may be the one with his back up against the cage. And if that takes place, I'm a little worried about Phil Rowe's gas tank. We've seen him fade. We've seen him have a tough time on the scale before. And in fact, he missed weight coming into the fight against his last opponent here, against my guy, Nico Price. And I think that makes a big, big difference for this guy. Because if he's fresh, if he's a 185er in there fighting 170s, yeah, he's going to knock you out. He's a big dude. But let's see what he looks like when he has to make weight on Saturday. I took the short buy low on Neil Magny. I laid minus 150, 1.5 units to win one, Nick. That's what I'm doing. I'm a little nervous he's getting mushed. There's a lot of love for Neil Magny in the market right now. This line opened up a pick'em, and he's all the way up to about minus 165 at this point. So I am a little afraid of being on the public favorite of the week, but I think he should be favored in this spot. So I'm okay with it. What do you like here?
Yeah, it's a tough one because you're right. The people that have been beating Magny, and I've picked against him really well. I've made some cash against Magny with these grapplers, with these guys that have a clear advantage over him that won't let him do what he does. Backpack people, take, you know what I mean? Just control the fight with high level fight IQ. Here's the thing about Magny. He's good everywhere. His striking's even decent. He's not bad on the feet. I mean, he can sting you a little bit too. And again, he floats pretty well, but defensively, he does get zapped at times, and his chin is a little bit suspect. He recovers at times, but there's also spots where he can't. And I think Rowe hits hard enough where if he hurts a guy like Magny, then it's going to be lights out. And again, you mentioned the reach is about the same here. So it all comes down to whether Rowe can keep enough space. If he lets Magny pin him up against the cage, get some takedowns, take his back him, he's not going to win this fight, obviously. So that's Magny's path. That's why a lot of people are looking at this line and the price range and thinking, man, Magny's been in there with so many better fighters. I mean, you just mentioned a few of them that he did the backpack, or he did control the fight, control the tempo, didn't let them kind of get their striking off. He's done this to high-level strikers many times if you look at his resume. So this is just kind of another one of those cases. But I do like what I see on the Rowe side. I think he's one of those fighters that now is getting more comfortable in the UFC. He's kind of settled in a little bit. He knows he belongs here. So his confidence level mentally is improving to the point where this is a really good spot for him. I mean, again, it's kind of a head scratcher if you think about it, looking at the line and seeing the price still be this low for Magny. But after you dig through it, I mean, it's a spot where Rowe could definitely win. So I'll go against you here. I can't lay the chalk on Magny. I know it's everybody's kind of favorite chalky side. Like you said, a lot of people believing in Magny here with his game planning. I could respect it. It seemed like it's really a buy low type of price. I get it. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And sometimes if the line looks a little bit too, I don't know, if it looks bad, there's something to it a little bit. And I think that's one of these cases where Rowe, he's been shining as of late, and I think he continues to shine here. This is a good opportunity. But for me, I would look at a prop. If he's going to win this fight, it's probably by that knockout. It's going to be hard for him to get a decision over a guy like Magny, unless he hurts him repeatedly every round. He could be losing the round, and maybe he stings Magny to the point where he steals the round back. But that's probably going to be the way he wins a fight, or if he just repeatedly busts Magny up in a three-round standing affair. But if he does that, then he's probably going to get Magny out of there. So if you're looking to bet the Rowe side, bet him by finish, bet him inside the distance, more likely than knockout than anything else, obviously, because Magny does have the grappling advantage in this fight. So for me, I think it's Rowe by knockout more than anything else.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that one bit, Nick. And honestly, I think it's a pretty easy hedge, especially for people that got in early. If you got the -110, if you got the -150, if there's a knockout price or even an inside the distance price out there on Phil Rowe as he balloons as an underdog that's better than 2-1, you can play both sides of this thing. You can play Neil Magny, death taxes, and Neil Magny by decision, Nick. That's how it goes for my guy. You can play Magny by decision and then play Phil Rowe by knockout if you feel like doing that kind of thing. I'm probably just going to ride the money line, but I am a little nervous. This is one of those spots where, Nick, I do my study, I do all my work, and I don't have time to look at the market by Monday, right? Like, we know the thing kind of evolves throughout the week. Things change Monday to Friday, which is why I do a Friday show. And not all the information is there when I pull the trigger sometimes, because I want to secure that good number. It's why I made a mistake and missed the number on Gillian this week, because I wanted to make sure I got my plus money. It headed the other way. I was right on this one. I got the -150. The number's worse now, but now there's a lot of people on the same side as me. And that always is kind of a thing that makes me want to, hold my cards a little close to my chest, stay back, stay off just a little bit more. So I'm a little nervous here on Neil Magny. Absolutely am. I think you very valid points. We'll find out on Saturday. I'm not going to cash out or hedge off it or anything like that at this point, but let's look at those props. We'll see what Magny inside the distance looks like, because frankly, I'm with you. I think if he wins, it's not going to be his first decision in his career.
Yep. It should be a good one. Another intriguing spot, man. We said it on this card. I mean, there's some fights like this that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they play out, because, it does have a future impact on this weight class.
Absolutely. A lot of these fights actually have future implications. In fact, the next one we're about to talk about has serious future implications. Mr. Recency Bias himself, Brendan Allen, is returning to the UFC cage, taking on Bruno Silva. And Nick, seriously, I talk about recency bias being maybe the strongest in women's MMA. I think lines in women's MMA fluctuate harder than anything else based on a single performance. Brendan Allen might be the flag bearer for men's MMA, because he goes from being a bum to being a world beater fight to fight. We see crazy takes on this man. He pulled off the upset against Andre Muniz as a big underdog, and he made it look easy, Nick. The kid is on a 5-fight win streak after being taken out by my guy, Chris Curtis. I do apologize. That was a grappling match mixed in there. He is on a 4-fight win streak, but still a finish over Krzysztof Jotko. Not an easy thing to do. He was able to out-scramble Jacob Malkoun. Not an easy thing to do. He choked out Sam Alvey at the end of his run. Okay, that one was probably a little easy, but he tapped it all off with Andre Muniz and a phenomenal rear naked choke. He's big. He's long. His striking is coming along. He's got offensive power. He's got a solid gas tank, high-level BJJ black belt, very opportunistic submissions, and he's got great MMA wrestling. Wrestling versus MMA wrestling, not the same thing. He's built for MMA, so he's going to out-wrestle wrestlers sometimes in the cage because he flows between his grappling and his striking so well. I like Brendan Allen a lot. This is a good fighter, a young fighter, but I'm also never going to be able to unsee him wobble, Nick. He gets chinned in almost every single fight. I mean, even his last fight against Muniz landed some big right hands, and Muniz is not a stand and bang type of fighter. He's not a guy who knocks people out on the feet. So it's a little concerning to me that his opponent is none other than Bruno Silva, who's got all of his wins, 20 of them, in fact, by knockout. This guy has ridiculous ridiculous power in his hands. And frankly, his right hand is his best weapon, Nick. He is another guy that's been a victim of recency bias. He lost to Gerald Meerschaert, and everyone left this guy for dead. Turns out he was sick. Worst performance of his career. We find out later the guy almost didn't make it to the cage, but he was too gutsy to pull out of a fight. He was too proud to say, I'm sick, I can't compete tonight. So he gets his ass beat by Gerald Meerschaert. Run that back. Please run that fight back. I want to see it again. I'll bet you that Bruno Silva wins that fight if they do it again. He responds by knocking out Brad Tavares in the first round. Questionable stoppage. You go back and run that tape. Brad Tavares was not out. It was bad visually, but he was very much still with it. So you got a little grain of salt on that. But either way, the guy is just a brutal, vicious power puncher. And that's kind of been Brendan Allen's kryptonite recently. Like the Chris Curtis fight was his most recent loss. He got a big shot to the body, dropped his hands, and then it was the right hand that sat him down. And he just can't take that punch. There's very few people, Nick, that get knocked out by Sean Strickland. Brendan Allen is one of them. I worry about the kid's durability. But these guys are kind of yin and yang. Bruno Silva's got 6 finish losses, all by submission. So give me violence. Give me violence, Nick. I think Bruno can absolutely knock Brendan Allen out if he plays his cards right. I actually went back and I dug into the stats for this one. I'm not normally a numbers guy, Nick, but I was like, could he replicate the Curtis fight? Because if Bruno comes out and he attacks the body, I'm tempted to DM this guy on Instagram. If he attacks the body of Brendan Allen, I will back the dump truck up that he's going to win this fight by knockout. But he's a headhunter. All this guy does is come forward and swing. You look at the strike counts, like for his last 3 or 4 fights, Nick, and it's like 5-1 head versus body. He just does not attack the body the way that you need to get his opponents to drop their hands. So I think Allen is going to be defensively prepared for what this man is going to bring to the table. And if we see grappling Brendan Allen make a return to the cage, he probably smothers this guy and taps him out. I'm going to pick Brendan Allen to win. I don't know that I'm taking a side money line because I'm a little too scared that Brendan Allen just gets chinned again on Saturday, because this is a very real threat coming across the cage from him. But it's Allen sub or Bruno KO, in my opinion. Pretty binary fight, Nick. Both ends in a finish, in my opinion.
100% agree. I've been right. Let me say this about Brandon Allen recently. I mean, I've picked his spots very well. I cashed against him in the Curtis fight, and I've cashed with him in his last couple of W's too. So I've picked him pretty well, and I just think this is a spot for him that we're going to see the Curtis kind of Allen step back in here a little bit. And Silva's fighting at an all-time high right now, and he just gets disrespected. Obviously, the biggest concern here is if Allen can get him down to – I mean, there's levels to the game, and Allen –
exactly.
His offensive grappling is amongst the best at middleweight for sure. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. So I'm worried because that is Silva's kryptonite. He's getting better, though. His takedown defense is improving, and his submission defense is improving. If you look at the Silva before he came into the UFC compared to now, he's not the same fighter. He's way better, more confidence again, just clearly across the board, even his conditioning. He is a different type of fighter. And again, he's settling into the UFC. Look, I know Allen is kind of a shark on the ground where he's going to be drooling to get this fight to the ground and just have his way with Silva. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be that easy. And on the feet, it's the other way around. Like you said, I think Silva's going to be drooling to see the finish over Allen because he knows it's possible. So both these guys are each other's kryptonite. And it's going to be intriguing to see how it plays out. But for me, I'm going to go with the dog money here too. I got to lean the Silva side because I do think he's going to continue his momentum and he's going to derail all the nice momentum that Allen has coming into this spot. It's just, I think it's going to be one of those situations where Allen's going to be looking pretty good. Silva's going to stuff a couple takedowns and then he's going to land that shot that just kind of rocks Allen and just gets him out of there. So another finishing potential type of fight. I don't see this fight hitting the scorecards. This is another price. I'm not looking at the, fight goes or whatnot at this moment in front of me, but that is an intriguing spot. I mean, it's going to be pretty chalky. I don't know if there's going to be much value there, but this is obviously both of these guys can finish. It's going to be Allen, like you said, by submission, or it's going to be Silva by knockout. I think that's the only way to go here. And I am leaning more towards the Silva side by knockout. And of course, the plus money on the money line.
Okay. I respect it, Nick. I respect it. I actually, I get it. I saw the path for the knockout first. And then as I dug into the tape, I kind of ended up more on the Brendan Allen side of things, which is why I'm passing from a money line perspective. I can't wait until the props drop because I want to see what the numbers look like. There's an outside shot that I end up on the same side as you if I got a good number on the KO for Silva, because I think that's his path to victory. And I think he's more than capable of landing that right hand and rocking this guy. Like I said, if I could get any kind of confirmation that he was going to rip the body, it would be back up the trunk day. I would be all about Silva in this spot if I knew he was going to attack the body. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a fun fight for as long as it lasts, no matter what.
I agree. There's fireworks for sure in that fight. There's no doubt, man. It's going to be so fun. I can't wait.
It's one, the script writes itself. That fight can't be boring.
100%.
All right. Next up, David Onama taking on Gabriel Santos. Speaking of can't be boring, my goodness, Nick. We've got David Onama in a very rare position here as a big underdog. He's like plus 190 here in this spot. And so I immediately was like, man, I remember talking about this kid at Glory. I remember talking about how crazy athletic he is and how big and how long he is and how he's just going to be showing improvements. And he's so fast. I want this kid as a dog. I know I want him as a dog. And then I went, wait a second. What's that guy's name? Gabriel Santos. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Oh, Gabriel Santos makes his UFC debut against none other than my guy, Lerone Murphy. I'm a big Murphy guy, Nick. I'm a big Murphy guy.
Hard not to be.
Oh, yeah. He's such a badass. We need to see him in the cage far more often. Unfortunately, he's not as active as I would like him to be. But I remember that fight because there was an error. There was an error on DraftKings where his odds were far lower than anywhere else in the market. And now maybe that was DraftKings just kind of laying a trap. I say error. Maybe they did it purposefully. Who knows? But there was a big flood on Twitter of people going, oh, shit, they've got Murphy at like minus 135 on DraftKings. Everybody and their mom piled in on that number. He was mostly a minus 180 or so favorite, but it was like one-way traffic on Lerone Murphy. And I was like, guys, I'm like maybe the biggest Lerone Murphy guy out there. Don't do it. Don't lay minus 200 on Murphy against this kid Santos. And it was a split decision. My guy Murphy made it through that fight. He got his hand raised. All the boys cash. Happy everybody got their money. But it was close.
Yes, man. That was an awesome fight. Awesome fight.
Unreal.
And he took this fight. That was a short notice debut, I believe, from Santos, too, on top of it all, right? So he wasn't taking that fight like with a full training camp, and he still pushed Murphy to the limit, man. This kid is good. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. Continue.
No, you're fine. Cut me off, especially for stuff like that. It's well warranted. But that's what we're talking about here. David Onama, now he was an exciting prospect, but like I've simmered on literally everybody from the Glory MMA camp, right? We haven't seen him since his fight with Nate Landwehr. Now that was a barn burner, but Nate Landwehr is a guy who personally, Nick, like I'm not the highest on. I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy for that. But I thought Ige was going to knock him out cold, and I don't know how he does it, but he like zombies his way back after getting hurt so badly that lesser men would be dead. I don't know how Nate Landwehr does it. I really don't. But what happened in the Nate Landwehr fight with David Onama is by the second round, he was cooked. Like Nate gave this man a break and was playing to the crowd and was like doing this thing. And he's on top of him, pounding him. The ref's going to step in and Nate just lets him up. It's like, Nate, what are you doing? Like, Nate could have finished that fight very easily. Instead, it goes 15 minutes to the cards. That's concerning to me. You know, if the guy literally passes on what is probably a $50K bonus as a massive underdog because he's playing to the crowd and getting a fight of the night bonus instead, that makes you wonder. David Onama is incredibly fast. He's incredibly explosive. He also could have finished Nate Landwehr in the first round. And again, lesser men probably would have been out on their shield with the shot that he hit Nate with. But I think he also is maybe a little breakable. Because if Nate hadn't let him up, I think that fight gets stopped, Nick. And what we've seen from Gabriel Santos, he took everything Lerone Murphy had in that fight. Absolutely everything, and said, please, sir, can I have some more? It's delicious. And just kept coming forward. Pinned him up against the fence, took him down in the third round. He was hunting a finish in that fight. And Lerone just is so damn good at scrambling. He wasn't quite able to secure the right positions. I would love to take the dog shot on David Onama. He's training at Factory X Muay Thai, which I think is a great camp for him since the fallout over there at Glory MMA. but it's been a year since we've seen him. I need to see the evolution. I could see him being a live dog in this spot, Nick. I could see him winning this fight. He might be the raw talent that we thought he was. And now at, frankly, a better camp with a better coach who's not, cheating to gamble instead of, he's actually helping you with your career instead of trying to make money off of you. Maybe he soars to new heights. Maybe this is the spot that Onama needed to be in. But I can't do it. I'm way too impressed with what Santos did in his last fight to go against him. This is a fireball and popcorn fight for me, Nick. I'm going to watch. I'm going to get the fireball and popcorn before the fight starts. Sit down, have your drink, have your popcorn. Don't let your eyes leave the screen, because I think this thing is going to be a barn burner. This is my pick for fight of the night on Saturday. I think it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be an excellent fight. Let me just say this. James Cross, by the way, much respect to him. I understand people are hating on all the gambling stuff that went on with that stuff. But as far as the coach goes, put that all out the window. I'm not going to even take sides on that thing. Of course,
absolutely.
A lot of people know that we did podcasts together, and he was a good dude, man. Everything that I, dealt with him, he was just a class act. I didn't see anything bad at all. So let me just say that. But that being said, I think fight-wise, he impacted a lot of his fighters in a positive way. And it worries me that Onama doesn't have that guidance. I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe Cross is still in his ear some way and helping him coach. I'm not sure what the situation is over there. But when you lose a coach like Krause, I mean, again, the fight, you can say what you will about it, but the guy's tremendous. I mean, he was on the rise for a reason. I mean, he was just that talented of the coach. He was doing a lot of great things in Glory. So Onama losing that kind of worries me a little bit too. But now then going back to the stylistic matchup with everything, dude, Santos is legit. You mentioned it, man. I mean, there's no question about it. I just think he's the better prospect out of the two. Onama has, again, that nice physique, all the intangibles. I mean, he's got a gift with the way, he's kind of built for the weight class, and he's got the skill to back that up. But like you said, I just question his durability. I question his heart. And to be a high-level successful fighter at this stage, you got to have everything fine-tuned mentally, physically, across the board. And we've seen some defensive flaws and maybe some mental spots right now with Onama in the past that it just doesn't sit right with me. And I haven't seen that from Santos. Again, he hasn't been in the UFC long, obviously, so we're going to get to see a lot more of him in this fight. He's going to get tested because Onama is going to have that offense. It's going to have some success in his spot. There's no question about it. But I still think when it comes down to it, Santos is the better dog. Obviously he's favored this fight, but I'm saying he's going to bite down. He's going to be the one getting the takedowns late. He's going to be the one that has that will to win the fight when it comes down to it. And I think he's going to succeed in doing so. Now the line opened up, a huge favorite, a solid favorite for Onama, if I'm not mistaken. And it flipped all the way to Santos being a solid favorite right now. And now you're seeing some buyback on the Onama side. So let me say this too, for the odds makers at times. Obviously, for people that have kind of followed my career, I've originated odds for many years, and I've been, followed by the market off and on. So I know it's not easy originating lines and coming out there first and having a first opinion, and especially a spot like this where you have Onama, he's been a hype train. You know what I mean? And you have to respect that because the public is going to respect this guy despite the laws, whatever, the instances that we see, the bad of him. It's just not easy to set an opening line on a guy like this. So absolutely. The odds makers came out a little bit off in this spot. The bettors came in, took the plus money value here. And honestly, where it is now, people are biting on Onama. I get it. It's tempting where the price is, but I still think it's a favored or pass situation. I just think when it comes down to it, Santos is going to look better, especially in round 2, round 3, and probably get a finish here. So everybody kind of coming in and betting on the Onama side right now, I hopefully they keep coming because I want a better price. I'm already on Santos around minus 200-ish. And if this line climbs down even more, I'm going to jump on even more. I believe in this kid. And despite me thinking that Onama can still turn things around and be a very legit fighter, I just think this is a very bad spot in a matchup of serious prospects. And I think Santos is the part. So my money would back him, and especially at a better price, under 200. If he keeps on floating down, I will definitely hop on that chalk.
I'm in full agreement there with you, Nick, and I'm glad you mentioned the opener. I've got a note here and actually was going to go ahead and talk about that because, Onama opened up as a minus 235 favorite, and now it's like we see flips from like minus 140 to plus 140 type of situation. It's rare when you see a flip from like a minus 235 to a plus 235. That doesn't happen very often. No, so this was a major line flip in this fight.
Right. And let's just say this to get ahead of it before all the conspiracy theorists out there jump on or say, hey, there's something going on. The line doesn't move like that. Stop it. It's not a conspiracy thing at all. There's not anything, it was a line that was set wrong. So again, I'm not even making it's no negative to odds makers out there that are coming out first and trying to put their hat in the market and actually, put some work in. So I can respect that. It's not easy to set original lines and have the whole market follow you. So not even a negative towards them. It's just the fact is that's what happened in this line. The bettors came in and took the right price, and they continue to do so for a little while. So no conspiracies, no like bad stuff going on here. It's just, it was a wrong price. And right now it's getting a little bit more accurate.
To quote our guy, the Greek, they got punished for it. They said it wrong and they got punished for it. So yeah, you hate to see it, but that's what happened. And we got a weird situation now where the number is backwards and the movement looks weird. And I can absolutely understand the nibble on this kid because of the upside at plus 200. I'm not doing it. Not for me. I got to see it first. I'm with you. I think it's favored or pass. I like this Santos kid a lot. I think his gas tank is better. And I think especially in rounds 2 and 3, he'll extend it and he'll be the one in the driver's seat at that point of the fight. So I'm right there with you, Nick. I think he's the side here in this spot. And I do want to just real quick before we move on, I got to walk it back just a little bit. Everything I say on the show, like entertainment is a big part of what we do, obviously. So I was the champion of Glory MMA, Nick. I loved that whole gym. I loved Kraus. I raved about them. I was looking for opportunities to bet on them. I was trying to be a little funny earlier on. I don't want to be like too insulting on the people there, but big Jeff Molina fan. The dude was always super cool with me. I wanted to get Kraus on the show, especially with all the gambling stuff that was going on before it went sideways. I thought it was really cool. So like, I wasn't meaning to besmirch anybody or anything like that. The whole situation is very unfortunate, especially for the fighters that are involved and kind of left out in the cold about it. So just wanted to make sure I cleared that up. I was trying to be a little bit funny and don't want people to think the wrong thing.
Yeah, people don't realize. I mean, there's like, again, people get painted a certain way because of the public perception. But once you get to know some of these people, man, I mean, they don't know what kind of, like, he's a good dude. Again, we won't, that's a whole other show we could probably discuss. But I think that, again, the stain and all that stuff, which, again, rightfully so. I think that there's some justification to all of that. But as far as an individual going, from what I know about James Krause, he's a solid dude, stand-up guy. And I like him for sure.
There you go. And we will move on from there. Next up, everybody, we have got, why is this fight here? I'm really kind of confused. With some of the fights that we've talked about and went over, I'm shocked at the placement of this fight on this card. Maybe it has something to do with the way they think it'll play out. Maybe it's just going to be, a 30-second exciting brawl, and that's why it's up here in this spot. I don't get it, though, Nick. I feel like it could be 2 or 3 slots down, personally. Weird matchup here, Justin Tafa with Austin Lane. If you guys think you remember the name Austin Lane, it's because this is the guy that Greg Hardy smashed on Dana White's Contender Series to get into the UFC.
I had a bet on Lane, by the way. I regret
did
that.
You?
Yes, I did. I had a bet on Lane against Hardy in that fight. And Hardy made me look foolish. So, yeah, just got to throw that in there real quick.
Well, you know what? I was the guy looking for the opportunity to fade Hardy, and I waited 1 or 2 fights to do it. I didn't get it on the Lane spot, thankfully. But Hardy, being a Walmart manager at this stage of his career, was not on my bingo card. And here, Austin Lane is the guy getting the UFC opportunity instead. Wild how life moves sometimes. But Lane got his second invitation back to Dana White's Contender Series and made good on it. I mean, this guy forces like a 2-minute fight. That's what he does every single time. I mean, he will just fly at people from way outside of range, karate kicks, throwing up headshots. Like, I don't know what his gas tank looks like, Nick, because frankly, all of his fights end so fast. Like, I don't know if he can keep that production up. I don't know if he's got a chin. I don't know any of this stuff about Austin Lane. He's a wild man with all round 1 stoppage finishes, win or losses. He's incredibly entertaining. And I think that's why he's being given this opportunity. Justin Tafa, he's another guy that I'm still kind of struggling with. He's 6-3. He's got no experience. We're watching him evolve and grow up in front of us as a heavyweight. It's very strange, the UFC career path that he's had. And he just came off starching fan favorite Parker Porter. He's a favorite here in this spot, and I think I get why. Lane might just charge headlong into one of Tafa's fists. And we know people go down when that happens. If you play it smart, I don't think Justin Tafa has the skills to go 15 minutes, though, Nick. Like, he either knocks people out in the first round or he loses when the fight gets extended. And that's because I think he's so reliant on that power if you don't give him the opportunity to land with the same big shot that everybody finds themselves running into, he doesn't have a plan B. He's got no parachute. You know what I mean? I'm tempted here on Austin Lane. I don't think this is a coin, and I say it this way, Nick, this is a coin I don't need to flip. This fight is going to be brutal violence as long as it lands. You've got Lane coming in here. We haven't seen him in a year. Maybe he's improved. Maybe he never changes his style. These are things I don't know. I have no idea what to make of this guy. And when I've got those kinds of questions, I think I'm going to pass. But if he fights the way that he did in any of his tape shows, I think Tafa probably clips him with something big when he launches himself at Justin Tafa. So I'm going to lean at Tafa minus 170. But Austin Lane could be very live here. He's freakishly athletic. So would it shock me if he finally had a smart game plan, or even if he landed first? No, not even a little bit. So Tafa, complete pass for me. Nick, can you make sense of this fight for me?
I'm staying away. I mean, obviously heavyweights on the main card slot, a lot of times when they're gifted, a spot like that, it's because the fans overall, again, more guys that follow the sport, I think would be in the same train of thought as you and I, where we could see this on a prelim and we wouldn't mind as much. But the fans that are tuning in a lot of times, I think, want to see the big boys throw down. And this is a spot where we could see a knockout. So it might end up being worth it, like as far as card placement goes. I agree with you. I think it's Tafa probably getting the knockout over Lane, but Lane is a better mixed martial artist here across the board. And he has a little bit of pop on the feet. It's just defensively where you got to be concerned about. And Tafa can't spark him and knock him out. So for me, I'm staying away from this fight too. It depends on where the line goes from here. I mean, if it drops too far down, like if I'm talking about 130-ish or something like that, I'll probably take a stab at it. But it's probably a dog or pass situation. I agree with what you're saying now, where the price is, because I would not lay chalk on Tafa in this spot. And Lane is one of those guys where, he's had those bad moments in time, but it seems like he's getting his act together right now, right? Everything's kind of coming into form. He's fighting a lot smarter. So this is a good time for him to kind of make some waves and get in the heavyweight division. But I still think that I can't trust him enough personally right now to make a bet on him either. So it's dog or pass, but I am going to pick the Tafa side. And I think he does probably get the knockout win. It's just a mess of a fight for me, like you said. I agree. It's hard to pick this fight. It's hard to bet this fight. But if it's hard to bet the fight, then it's probably a dog or pass situation.
Yeah, okay. And I got to shout out my guy Dixon. He's going hard in the chat here, and it's rare that I see my guy Dixon going this hard. And he's saying, I'm telling you, Clint, he says, this is like a Walker decision spot. And I called that Walker decision, Nick. Big plus money number where he completely reversed a lot of people's expectations. And he is calling for Lane by a decision in this spot, which
could happen.
I said,
if he fights smart,
if he fights smart.
Yeah.
I don't know him well enough. That's the thing. I got to be able to trust somebody. When I make a bold call like that, I knew exactly what I was getting from Johnny Walker. So I was comfortable making that call. I don't know Lane well enough. So let's take a look at that number. We'll check it out when it comes out, Dixon. I may straight up just say, my boy Dixon said so. And if it's 12-1, we'll put a little sprinkle on it. We'll see what happens when the props drop a little bit later in the week. All right, everybody, co-main event time. Again, we have been joined and blessed with the time from our guy, Nick. So thank you again for joining the show, Nick. Let's talk about these last couple fights. And everyone, do me one more favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. It helps out a ton. Amanda Ribas is taking on Maycee Barber. What a great fight this is. Now, Maycee Barber, she left a lot of people with a bad taste in her mouth, and she's done that more than once, Nick. She's done it more than once. She is young. She is tough. She hits hard. And, frankly, she's mean. She is straight up mean. And she has gotten away with a couple of fast ones on people. I mean, a lot of us, myself included, thought Miranda Maverick deserved to get the nod in that fight. She got the nod. A lot of people thought Andrea Lee deserved to get the nod in that fight. Maycee Barber got the nod. She seems to be squeezing by at just the right times. And what I've noticed with fighters like this, where they're young, they're raw, they've got some holes in their game, but the UFC machine is behind them. If they squeeze out of your grasp at the wrong time, they make big improvements. And a lot of people really want to get their vengeance. They want to get their money back, take their pound of flesh out of that fighter the next time they fight. But it's too late. You missed your shot. You bet on Andrea KGB Lee, and frankly, you made a good bet that night. You should have gotten paid, but you didn't. A lot of people are going to go to the Amanda Ribas side here, just trying to fade Maycee on principle. And I think that's a mistake, Nick. Amanda Ribas, has the world in the palm of her hand. She's adorable. She's got that fan-friendly smile. Everybody loves her. She's got slick jiu-jitsu. She's got a solid run going on right now. 11-3 overall record. Moving up, enjoying her new weight class here at 125 pounds. But I think she's a little weak at 125, if I'm being honest with you, Nick. I think physically she had an advantage over the women at 115 that she's losing moving up to this 125-pound weight class. Now, she fought very competitively with Katlyn Chookagian. Props on anybody who got in there as an underdog. She should have won that fight. She absolutely should have. My poor guy, Liam picks fights. He talks about it with regularity. He got robbed that night. And I was on Vivi. I was on Vivi heavily because of exactly why I'm going to be on Maycee Barber on Saturday, Nick. I thought she was bigger. I thought she was stronger. I thought she would control the grappling. I thought she'd be able to out-muscle Amanda Ribas, and I thought she'd hit harder. Well, what happened in that fight is Vivi, for God knows what reason, jumped Gilly in the first round on a BJJ black belt, burned her arms out, and ended up on her back for the next 2 rounds. Not the game script I had in mind when I made my bet on Viviane Araujo last time out, Nick. The big thing for me is that Amanda Ribas is a completed product. We see her strike the same every single time out there. Now, don't get me wrong. She goes on a half beats. She changes up the pacing. She does that really well, and she does it a lot. But her hands are here. Always here. They're way outside. They're way low. And one of my favorite spots was calling the Marina Rodrigues KO prop, Nick. It was back in 2021, so it's been a minute. But Ribas can't take a punch. She's been hurt badly in a lot of fights. And recently, she's managed to get over the win a couple of times. I don't think that issue's gone away, and I think people are a little too high on her at this point. I think Maycee Barber is still the future, Nick. I think she's getting better. I think she's improving. It's taking time. She's only 25 years old, but we are seeing those ever so small improvements, fight over fight over fight. She's getting better every time. She's got a nasty head kick on her now that she showed off in her last fight. And frankly, if she lands that thing the way she hit KGB Lee with it, I think Ribas is hitting the canvas. I'm waiting until this balloon bursts, Nick. Everybody and their mom is piling in on Amanda Ribas, and I'm just waiting. Give me the biggest number I can get, and then I'm going to take Maycee Barber, and I'm calling the knockout, Nick. She's going to flatline Amanda Ribas on Saturday, and I can't wait. I want a 6-1. The bookies better be asleep at the wheel for me because I want to get paid when Maycee Barber makes everybody extremely upset and knocks out Amanda Ribas on Saturday.
Let me just say, wow. And I'm saying wow because everybody else, like you said, is steaming the line right now on Ribas. They think that it's a surefire bet. It's easy because, look, a lot of recency bias goes into this too. She looked phenomenal in her last fight. Like you said, she took down Araujo. It was surprising how easy that fight was, in this weight class too. So make no mistake that her recent performances have got her to this point, and deservingly so because she could strike. I mean, offensively, she's not a bad striker. She could do some damage. She's not a fish out of water on the feet, but it's her ground game where it's at. Her takedown ability, her grappling ability. I mean, she's one of the elite BJJ practitioners in the sport in this weight class. At any ladies' weight class, she's just top of the food chain. She's so good. But the problem here is you're right. A lot of people are disrespecting Barber. It's kind of a fighter you love to hate. You'd love to kind of be like, hey, she got me here in this. Yes, she's been in a lot of squeaker type of fights, but those fights have been close. You can't necessarily say that she should have got those nods. A lot of people, again, at the pricing and the value and all that, I agree with what you said. Very close, very competitive fights. Could have kind of gone either way. But what she brings to the table here, she's improving. She's got that vicious knockout power. She's got that killer instinct. If she connects on Ribas, she's going to follow up and she's going to get her out of there. So I agree with you. I already have a bet on this fight. I grabbed around plus 55. Now, let me say this, not to brag, but normally when I get on a line, it usually goes my way, meaning that if I got plus 55, it might close 35, 45, whatever the case may be. I'm probably going to beat the line. This is a spot where I didn't. I got plus 55, and it went against me the other way. Obviously, there's some sharp opinion against us, and there's sharp and public action coming in on the Ribas side. So it wasn't dummies that are coming in taking the bait here because I'm saying the bait because I just think they're going to end up speeding a little bit too fast with all the action coming in the last 24 hours or so. And I think you got to respect Barber just because, again, she hasn't looked the part as of late, but she's fought decent competition. Ribas has looked the part as of late. So we're basically buying high on the Barber side. You know what I mean? As far as the plus money side of things right now. And a lot of people are just over respecting the Ribas side. She's got all the parts to be a future champion, Ribas does, because offensively it's there. It's just defensively. You're not going to probably hold a strap in the UFC if you don't have a chin. And if you can't absorb some of the heavy punches that you're going to face, and she's just that fighter where she's going to get cracked. She can look good. She could be winning the fight. She could be winning 13 out of 15 minutes. And maybe in that last, on the 14th minute, get cracked and be out. That's it. So that's the liability here that you got to worry about if you're laying the chalk on Ribas, especially against a young, hungry fighter in the Barber side of things, where she is training with alpha male. She's getting more time in with that camp. Man, I think people are sleeping on Barber. So as the line continues to grow, hey, go up to minus 250. I will gladly take a stab at Barber plus 200-ish or whatever the case may be. So I'm with you here, but it seems to be like we're on a little island by ourselves right now. We're on a two-man boat. I'm sure there's going to be more support, more sharp action that comes in once this line peaks. But right now, it's all one way, and it's trending towards Ribas.
We're just going to row, man. You and me, Nick, we're just going to row our way home on this one. We're in our own little quick skiff, and we're going to beat everybody to the finish line. I like it, man. I think I love hearing that you're the guy that's in the boat with me. And I'll be honest with you. If I set a line and Nick Kleydson walked in and said, give me 500 on that, I'd be like, oh, shit. Let me move that real quick. So it's surprising to me that that they didn't respect the action.
I did get some respect, initially, but then again, then in the last 24 hours, that just respect went out the window, because when you're getting, when you have a sharp bite one way, and again, the limits are going to keep on increasing as we get closer to fight day. And then you have 10 sharps bite the other way. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to take that one sharp, say, sorry, dude, your bet was garbage.
Everybody's wrong sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. And at the plus 55, my bet was garbage. I mean, if you look at it right now, obviously, where you could get 75s out there, what a terrible bet. It happens from time.
Honestly, I'm very close, Nick. I'm very close to jumping in because I just don't know how much higher this can go. I mean, it's women's MMA. I mentioned it before. The biggest recency bias in the sport is women's MMA. When you watch one fight and you go, trash, that's how we get this exact spot that I'm talking about. Maycee Barber could never, ever make 115 pounds. She'd have to cut her leg off to get down to 115 pounds. This is a thick girl, man. She's young. She's getting better. Her technical boxing, which I think is going to be the key in this fight, is solid. So when she gets in tight, I think there will be moments where she's going to be outstruck at range by Ribas, where Ribas is going to be able to flow on her just a little bit. But when she gets the respect with one or two big shots and Ribas panic takedowns, is she taking down Maycee Barber? A lot of people think she's going to because KGB landed 5 takedowns on her. Folks, those were like body lock, clinch, trip style takedowns, which Ribas doesn't do quite as well. She kind of bullies her way through. She looks for those double legs, those panic wrestle opportunities. All Maycee's got to do is sprawl. And on top of that, I already mentioned the size discrepancy. I don't think that Ribas is anywhere near as strong as KGB Lee is. She's another person who I don't think can make 115 pounds. So the muscle and strength difference is where I get the confidence, I guess, to say that Maycee Barber is going to be able to kind of shuck Ribas off where she didn't against KGB Lee. So I think she's going to hurt her, man. Whether she does it for 15 minutes and can't quite find the finish, or whether she does it with that flashy KO, which I think it'll come. I think she'll get the KO. I think Maycee's going to be the one getting her hand raised on Saturday, and I'm glad you're rocking with me, Nick. I couldn't wait for this talk, and I was terrified that you were going to tell me this was an easy play on Ribas.
No way, man. I agree with you. Like I said, good luck to those who are willing to lay 2-1, because there's going to be probably a lot of last-minute steam chasers hopping on the Ribas side too, because it's going to be so easy for her to get this fight to the floor and just dominate, right? That's what the narrative is going to be here. So, and again, regardless of the situation, those guys, if you do cash the Ribas ticket and you got it at a good price, however the fight plays out, you made a good bet at this. You know what I mean? If you're laying minus 150 and line closes minus 200, 225, you made a pretty good pre-fight bet regardless, win or lose. So let's hope, though, we cash our ticket on the other side.
Absolutely. And Sean K in the chat, all I'm going to say is MMA math doesn't work, my guy. MMA math never works.
No.
All right, everybody.
Work more, but you're right.
Yep. Main event time. Here we go. Josh Emmett taking on Ilia Topuria. And we have talked in depth about a lot of fights tonight, Nick. We have spent a lot of time breaking down these matchups, analyzing, maybe going a little too deep on some fights that maybe weren't worth our time. This one is so clear as day to me. I am a big Josh Emmett fan. I've been an Emmett fan for a long time. He's been my dark horse in this division. I was begging for him to get the title shot because I really wanted to see this man pull a Michael Bisping. Get up there, nuke somebody, get gold wrapped around your waist, retire on top, man. Like, I was really praying for that for Josh Emmett because he's putting the work in, and he really is a spectacular athlete, maybe the hardest puncher in this division. But he fell short. He got his opportunity against Yair Rodrigues, and he fell short. And honestly, I think this is where we get the roll down the mountain from someone like Josh Emmett. And I know a lot of people are saying this fight should be closer. It's disrespectful. He still hits really hard. You see these people make that one last effort to get to the title. And Glover's maybe the only one who takes a setback and then works his way back up the hill. Everybody else takes that setback and they find out, I'm never going to be champ. I'm at the end of my run. I'm just going to be fighting contenders for the next 2 years now. And it's almost like having the R word in their head, Nick. It's almost like when they get to retirement age, they just know. It's in their soul. It's in the back of their head. And I think that's kind of what happens here. Ilya is a younger, stronger, better version of Josh Emmett. And I think that's how the fight's going to play out on Saturday. I think he's justifiable as a minus 300 favorite. And I think if you are a parlayer, anchor everything on this guy. And if you want to hedge out a little bit at the end of the night and take the spread on Emmett or the KO on Emmett to make sure you're like protected in that spot, then go for it. That's an easy way to play this fight. I think Ilya rolls him. I think these guys will play at range. They'll go power for power. And when Ilya lands, I'm not sure Josh can take that anymore. And I don't think Josh is going to be able to wrestle him. Frankly, he never uses the wrestling anyway. Ilya absolutely can wrestle Josh Emmett. I'm not sure if he can keep him down or anything like that. Emmett's a strong guy. He's tough to keep there. But I do think this is an explosive fight where the younger guy just has the better chin and hits a little harder.
Look, this is a spot where I can understand why at this point right now in time, because I do think Josh Emmett is coming back way too fast, man. He took a beating in that fight against Yair. I mean, he took a lot of damage in a short kind of time in a way. So I was expecting him to perform a lot better, but here's the thing, man, recency bias. Holy cow. I mean, we jump off this guy's wagon right away with one bad loss. Like, all right, he's done. I don't know about that, but what I do think is he's coming back too soon. So this isn't going to help his chances of not being done, if that makes sense, like if he would have took a little bit more time, took a few more months, maybe fought a less skilled opponent or, take a step back, because I do think there's something to where once you get into that title shot range where, again, he was fighting for the interim belt and you lose, especially in a fashion like that, it kind of does go downhill for most fighters. Like you said, I do think there's something to that. And I think that probably happens here. I mean, there's just so much momentum to Topuria's side of things. I get it. I think he does more than likely find the finish over Emmett, but Emmett's a dog, man. And I get he could wrestle more in fights sometimes and control, the tempo and the pacing and everything like that. And he chooses to stand and fight and bang a little bit, but it's for a reason. He does have that fight-ending power. He's done it time and time again. And if there's anything to be said about Topuria that we've seen so far, he's hittable and he's been cracked. So a guy like Emmett cracking you is a different level. So I don't think this fight's probably going to work out too well for Emmett, but I'm not willing to lay 300 in this spot because it's overpriced. And again, I can justify it a little bit that it could be closer to that price range because of how soon he's coming back after that loss. And he wants to kind of get that taste out of his mouth. I get it. For me, I'm just thinking to myself, Emmett's made some money recently. Why is he rushing back in here? I'm trying to make sense of it all. When you get dominated like that, when you get beat, like it just doesn't sit well for you. You want to prove to the world, hey, that's not me. I'm going to get back on track, even for your own self-confidence. Like, look, I got to get back on the horse. I got to get back to my winning ways. So you're willing to get in there. And a lot of these fighters will probably tell the UFC, hey, I want to turn around as quick as possible. Get me in there. That was terrible. I'm better than that. I need to show my worth. Let me get back in there right away. Well, the UFC is going to say, okay, here you go. This is a bad here you go spot. So I get it. I do pick Topuria. I just can't lay the chalk. I mean, everybody, again, automatically thinking that he's going to come in here and just dismantle Emmett. I could see it playing out that way, but Emmett has enough power and enough experience, and he knows the situation here. He's not a dummy, that this is still a dangerous fight for Topuria, despite it, being the situation that it is. So no, I would not lay 300 because if this fight, look, take that Emmett loss away. We mentioned this on UFC on the Line. If Emmett doesn't look like he did against Yair, would the price even be close to 300? No, it would.
Honestly, with the hype on Topuria,
it wouldn't be.
It might be like 200.
Okay, but you're talking about 100 cents difference there. I think the line would be chopped in half if you're getting the Emmett that came into that Yair fight. It's, you know what I mean? So it'd be like minus 150, minus 160. But you do have to factor in that everything did happen. So I'm not saying, don't count that. No, you have to. I mean, he took that damage. He took that loss. You have to factor that spot in. So then it inflates the line a little bit. But man, minus 300, I don't know, man. So for me, I still feel like it's a dog or pass situation, but I'm not recommending you to bet this fight. I would probably stay away from it unless you get a good plus money price. I think, honestly, there's some value automatically. A small, as my friend Yanni says, a small little sprinkle type of bet on Emmett by KO or Emmett around plus 250 or above. If you put a little small sprinkle, I think I wouldn't blame you. Even if that money goes out the window sometimes, you can expect it. I think there is a little bit of value on the Emmett side. But again, I won't blame people for passing. I just wouldn't put it in a parlay. I wouldn't do that, man. I would stay away from it. If you don't like betting the dog side, don't bet support either. Stay away from it, man.
I hear you. Okay. Well, and the one thing I do want to say though, Nick, is you mentioned the fighters wanting to get back in there, right? Don't take the time off, rinse your mouth out, get back in there immediately. You know who that reminds me of? Joe Benavidez.
Yes.
The Figueiredo fight. Yeah. Where he went in there, he got cracked, illegal situation, turned around immediately and jumped right back in there, and we all went. I feel like that's exactly what Emmett's doing. Took a bunch of damage. He's older, not taking the time off to appropriately recover, and taking a fight that will jump him back into contender status. But it's a bad fight. It's a dangerous fight, a killer, especially if you're compromised.
Yes. I get it, and I do agree. I mean, I think it is a very bad spot. I've been such a big Josh Emmett fan. Let me just say this too. Like even offices that we work at, sometimes, like I just recently worked at Circus Sports, and a lot of the guys in there might not be diehard MMA fans, but it's on enough, in the office that Josh Emmett was one of those fighters that just watching him fight attracted new fans to the sport. I have a friend of mine, Andrew Palumbo, shout out to Andrew, that still works at Circa over there. And he's one of the biggest Josh Emmett fans that you could see because of his performances, especially in that Burgos fight. He watched that Shane Burgos fight and watched
fight of the year, man.
Oh, dude. So he became an instant fan. So much respect to him. And that's why I hope he doesn't go out like we think he's probably going to go out this weekend. You know what I mean? I hope he performs better than we all expect. Put it that way.
Nick, I always say there's no happy endings in MMA. Unfortunately, these guys always go out the way that we think they're going to. And I'm worried. I hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't. I would love to see Josh Emmett have a good retirement. Even if he loses this fight, maybe it's by decision, and he gets one more and then retires off a win or something. Like I'm praying for my guy. I just never have faith that that's actually going to be what happens.
I get it.
Well, there you go, folks. That was UFC Jacksonville. Real quick, before we end the show, Nick, I got to throw one last curveball at you. While we were live on the show, there was a bit of an announcement out there. They just confirmed Chito Vera versus Henry Cejudo for UFC 292. It was a bit rumored, but it has been booked. 3 rounds, 135 pounds, August 19th. What do you think of that?
Cheeto's been my guy, man. He's been a cash train for me overall. But, that's a tough matchup with Cejudo. You know what? If you're Cheeto, you got to be drooling to get that fight because it seems to me like Cejudo's only going to take those money fights. And for Cheeto, getting himself in the conversation tells you a lot because he is becoming a star in the UFC for sure. So I like what I've seen from Cheeto, but that's a tough-ass fight for him, man. It's tough.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to see Cejudo stick around. We want that. We need to see Cejudo stick around. And that fight with Aljo, man, it was close. So he's still at the top of the food chain, in my opinion.
Completely agree. They're killing me with this one because these are both my boys. Like I have been right there with you. Money train on our guy Chito Vera. Unfortunately, took the loss against Sandhagen last time out. But Cejudo, before he hung it up, he was my money train. He was my guy, and I was extremely confident. I backed the truck up on Cejudo against Aljo. Really upset the way that split went, personally, because I thought Cejudo was going to come on back and get it done and be the guy. So this fight just destroys me as a fan because I love both these guys and they both are in desperate need of a win. But that's going to be a fun fight. That'll be a great fight when it does come around. Thank you guys again, all of you, so much for watching the show. Nick, thank you for sticking with me. This was a huge card, a 2-hour show. Not a lot of people are cut out for that, so I appreciate your time. I know you're doing some stuff now these days. Feel free, shout out what you got going on, where people can find you, where they can listen to your podcast. The floor is yours, my guy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It was a fun time. I mean, going in depth with a person like yourself that knows the sport on shows like this is always awesome because, I respect everybody out there in the MMA community grinding it out week to week. We all know how difficult it is. You're going to have your ups and downs, but stick it out and do your best. So I respect all those. So thank you for everybody tuning in. And you can check my stuff out, obviously, on UFC Fight Pass. We have the show UFC On the Line. We have the Gambler's Perspective, both quality shows if you're into MMA betting for sure. Also, check out MMAoddsbreaker.com. That's a website that from time to time, it's been around for a long time, and you get some good nugs of information. We got guys like Adam Martin working there. Mike's MMA Picks is one of our guys that sells picks and gives out picks on there as well. Big Marcelo does a show with Adam. So a lot of talent on the MMA Oddsbreaker staff as well.
I got to get Adam Martin on the show, man. I've known that guy. He's been in the same circle as me like forever. I just had Marcel on. We had Mike on, I think, like 2 weeks ago. I got to get Adam next. He's got a target on his back now. He'll be a guest.
Dude, he's just a quality class act. I mean, he's been covering the sport for so long. Just a good dude. So definitely check all that stuff out. And then you can follow me, of course, at Twitter, at Fight Odds. And I guess we'll see you guys there. See you around. You'll see more of my stuff for sure. Also, I got to give a quick shout out before I forget.
Go for it.
You guys that are diehard combat sports fans, you guys got to check out Karate Combat. There's a big show this weekend as well. Coming up out of Miami, Florida. So that's some exciting stuff. I have a karate background, so that kind of the sport and evolution of what we see going on right now with Karate Combat is awesome to see because they have a lot of good stuff going on. So check out that league as well. Karate Combat, karate.com is the website, and I'll be there live in attendance, checking out the show and doing some betting analysis for those guys as well.
That is so awesome. If you ever need somebody to hijack a co-host seat or something, Nick, hit me up. Let me know. Say what's up to Robin Black for me while you're there. I know he does the Karate Combat stuff. I absolutely love that guy. All right, everybody check out Nick. Make sure you support all of his stuff as well. I'll be tuning in for the Karate Combat a little bit later as well. Somebody in the chat, I apologize. The flood of messages, I missed you. You were asking where to find me on social media. It's just Die Hard MMA Pod everywhere. You'll find me on Instagram. You'll find me on Twitter. Die Hard MMA Pod. That's the best way that you can find me. And I want to say a special, massive thank you to our new sponsor, Bet Openly, for being the ones who stepped up and are, helping us out, bringing the awesome content to you guys. I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time for you guys. If you want to take some of my money, if you want to go head to head with me on a couple spots on this card, follow that link. Get on betopenly.com and you can have some peer-to-peer live betting. I'm about to cash a bet against some poor sucker who thought I was making a mistake back in the Cubs. 8-0 right now, baby. Let's go. I'm already making money on Bet Openly. New sponsor. You love to see it. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show and always supporting. You guys get out there, kick some ass this week. Good luck on all your degenerate action. I'll be back on Friday for the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show. Let's roll, everybody. Thank you, guys.